from downtown San Francisco. This is 95.7 The Game.
Here on a Saturday morning on The Game, Evan Giddings, Dan Devone, Carter Chickering, Holy Trinity, rocking with you 9 to noon as we do as always. Dan, my man, I see you're perspirating, the lather's going on, you're gleaning. What's going on, my man?
Well, you know I do those up-downs before the show just to get mentally and physically prepared for the next 3 hours. And I like that, the Holy Trinity. This is sort of like the Wishbone backfield back in the day. We got Carter,
Yep.
Big Chick. Brandon Staley joins us once again. I don't know where the hell he's been for the last month. By the way, I need a written excuse if you're gonna show up to one of our shows, but let's do this, man. Yeah, I'm sweating, but I'm ready to go, man. Had to sprint here. It was a little close, but we're just under the wire.
Well, look, but before we get into the Bay Bridge series, before we get into the latest from 49ers training camp, which Carter was down, by the way, in Santa Clara earlier this week, I want to get his thoughts on that. Also, a couple Warriors updates for you. I do got to ask you because, look, you're up before the Roosters. You're up before the chickens are crawling, and before I got to go walk my dog at about 6 a.m. this morning. He's jumping on me, batting me around, saying, get the hell up. Where are you? What are you doing? Dan Devone's already up and getting his 3 miles in. So you're up at the crack of dawn or before the crack of dawn, and you still find some time, not just for us, but then you're also headed right to the airport after. Like, do you ever stop in life for a moment and say, maybe I want to just take a breath?
No, all the time. I think that it's sort of a misperception of what it is that you think my lifestyle entails. But today's a little crazy because I do have a 1:15 flight out to New York City and the show's done at noon. So what's the over and under that I catch that thing?
I'd say 22 and a half minutes. I think you'd be all right from here to SFO. Not too bad, especially if you got an Uber or, I don't know, Carter uses Waymo, whatever, Lyft is going on, whatever these transportation devices.
Waymo's the thing, man. Waymo, I'm a Waymo guy. My Waymo literally pulled over for sirens. Like, how does it know? Like, when you hear the sirens of a fire truck, which was a good half mile away, it pulled over to the right. I'm like, man, Waymo, my man.
Dude, I was reading about the social experiment that you could stop a Waymo car with a balloon. If you throw a balloon in front of a Waymo, it will stop. That's the reason I can't get in those things. I cannot do it. There has to be someone in the front seat of my car, whether it's a robot, whether it's a dog. It has to be something with at least a semblance of a pulse for me to believe that I'm going to get to my location on time.
I think that Waymo, we're going to think of Waymo and driverless cars much like that of the rotary telephone in like 20 to 25 years. You're going to be like, really? You guys used to drive? Are you kidding me? Like, what's that key for the ignition? Like, what are you guys doing?
Oh, Waymo's going to be in the sky in 25 years.
Oh, that's true. We'll go Jetsons before long.
Yeah, look, me and Carter are heading out to the opposite side of the bridge today for the first game of the final two Bay Bridge series games between the Oakland Athletics and the San Francisco Giants. That's kind of where I want to start today.
What's the over and under that you guys drink a half rack? Go ahead.
Just depends on what kind of what kind of beverage you're talking here. Coke Zero might be mixed with something else.
So I'm hearing, before we get into this, that, the A's take a lot of hit, obviously, for the amenities or the lack thereof out there. What's the name of where it is that they play these days? I don't even know. Lost track.
Coliseum.
Is it still the Coliseum? All right. The Oakland Alameda County Coliseum.
I mean, the place is going to be around after the nuclear bomb hits. Let's be honest. It's like a cockroach. You can't
if you go pound for pound, food for food, obviously, Chase crushes them, right? Or Oracle.
Oracle, yeah, of course.
But the chicken strips, from what I understand, apparently, the nod goes to Oakland. Can you lend any sort of insight?
Well, I don't know about the chicken strips because as a kid, Dan, you pretty much just stopped over at Subway, grabbed the $5 footlong, and then stuck it into the building. But I do know that I was able to recently convert one Carter Chickering. He's got his Giants hat on today. Might as well have the split cap going on. But was able to convert him over to the Oakland side. So, Carter, I know that, look, it took you, what was it, a month or two ago to your first Oakland A's game. Now that you have the lay of the land, now that you know that the Bay Bridge series, you will see one in Oakland. I actually do think it's going to be quite packed. There'll probably be at least 25,000 people, which for the Coliseum is quite a lot. What are you most looking forward to later on today? Uh-oh. Got to pot that up.
Our producer needs to pot up his own mic.
Uh-oh.
To see that stunning stadium, of course.
And that was the first thing that came out of his mouth when he walked through the Dennis Eckersley gate. No, look, what I'm looking forward to, quite honestly, is I don't know, just the experience, right? I think that's kind of all a lot of A's fans, and I'm one of them, that have sort of left to cling to, is this idea that, Bay Area baseball has always been two-sided. You got two sides of the bridge. You got multiple choices. Used to be the Raiders on that side as well, the Golden State Warriors. And so there was somewhat of a rivalry. Look, you're a city kid, Dan, so I feel like we can have this conversation. Sure. Growing up, I do think there was this identity of having your teams represent you and your side of the bridge. And this is essentially the final severance of that identity. There is not going to be any more East Bay sports, or at least at the Major League, National Basketball, and then, of course, National Football League level. There's still going to be, I think the Oakland Roots are still going to play at the Coliseum next year. You obviously have the San Jose Sharks. But as far as dual teams, dual options, there is none of that anymore, because the Warriors now play on this side of the bridge that we work in. The San Francisco 49ers are here. The Oakland Raiders are gone. They're in Vegas. And the Oakland A's will be leaving soon, heading up to Sacramento. So when I ask you what you think of when you hear the Bay Bridge series, is it 89? Is it, your friends that you used to try and throw eggs at when they brought A's gear to the city? What do you think of?
So my old man, obviously we were from the city, but he spent a lot of time working in the East Bay. So I grew up going to Oakland A's games. I was an Oakland A's guy, and I would always be that guy that was defending the Oakland A's. And when I was a kid, there were serious arguments. You would go back and forth. But I would say, to me, it culminated probably in the Bay Bridge series, the real Bay Bridge series in 89. I think that when San Francisco and they built the ballpark downtown, and all the money and the arrival of Barry Bonds, they went into another stratosphere. And it was no longer sort of this competitive dual market. It was now the San Francisco Giants and the little train that possibly could, that being the Oakland A's. This clearly became more of a one market, and then this other thing out there in Oakland. And every time they overachieved, that was the operative word. It's how is this team doing it in this small market with this small budget? They were much like that of the Tampa Bay Rays, as opposed to being thought of like that of a powerhouse, like that of their brethren, the San Francisco Giants. I haven't seen this as being sort of a rivalry on equal footing for more than a decade. You got to go back a ways when I could really think of Oakland being sort of that team that could go eyeball to eyeball with San Francisco on so many different levels. But I will say this, since the All-Star break, I want to say 14-4, one of the best records over the last 3 weeks to a month. So there's things to get excited about Oakland. But I'd like to get your thoughts, because you're much more into this than I.
Well, the thing that sucks, and look, as far as the game goes, the A's are playing good baseball. The Giants, we can get to, they're a 500 team. I think a lot of people have sort of buried their postseason chances with the losing 3 of 4 to the Atlanta Braves. They're now 4.5 back. They lost the tiebreaker. The season is not looking great for the Giants, and the season sort of began on the wrong footing for the A's, knowing that they were going to head up north. As far as this series goes, and I'd be happy to take any calls of people that are going to be out there at the game later on today. I'll be up in Section 320 along with Carter Chickering. Feel free to come by. If you want to buy me a beer, I'd be happy to take one. No, but the point is, in 888-957-9570, kind of what are your experiences as a Bay Bridge series rivalry participant? What do you think of when you think of the Bay Bridge series, and what do you think is leaving? That's kind of my question to the audience first here on Saturdays on The Game with Evan Giddings and Dan Devone. Because when I think of this rivalry, and it's less to me, Dan, about the A's versus the Giants, because I think you're right. The rivalry has never really been, it's not like a Niners and Raiders was. It's not too tumultuous. It's never gotten violent. I always enjoyed it because I felt like it was pretty cordial, and I always felt like there was a mutual respect between both sides and both franchises. I think it's also because neither team outside of the 89 area has really been that competitive at the same time. Yeah. Typically, they've taken turns in the spotlight. Now, the Giants, of course, had their run 2010 through 14. The A's had some good teams, and I think that's probably the most recent, best both sides of the bridge baseball that we've seen. The A's 2012 to 2014, with the likes of Donaldson, Cespedes, all the rest, and of course the Giants with Posey, Mad Bum, Sandoval. They had some pretty good teams. But when I think of the Bay Bridge series and kind of the culmination of it, honestly, I think of the severance of this golden age in Bay Area sports. And what I mean by that is this. The city of Oakland from 1975 up until 2018, saw 10 championships, starting with the Golden State Warriors in 75, the Oakland Raiders in 1980, 1983. Then you move, of course, to, well, I guess you got to go back actually 72. I apologize, because of the three-peat of the A's in the 70s. You have 72, 73, 74, the Golden State Warriors in 75, the Raiders of the early 80s, and then the Warriors playing in Oakland. I know they were the Golden State Warriors, but they played the Oakland Arena at Oracle, and they racked up a total of 3 championships there up until 2018. So you got 10 titles on that side of the bridge. And then also to bring in San Francisco during that period from 81 until 2022, you got 9 championships. Of course, 5 for the San Francisco 49ers, 3 that we just discussed for the San Francisco Giants, and then, of course, 2022 when the Warriors had moved over here, they got their first in San Francisco at Chase Center. So the Bay Area between both sides of the bridge has seen 19 championships in 47 years. That's a championship every 2.5 years between those 3 major sports. And that, to me, is what is sad about this being the end of it, is that whether you're a fan of Oakland sports, whether you're a fan of San Francisco sports, they have always held a very high standard, not just here in the Bay, but across all of sports. You know, Boston talks about being title town, or New York City being the mecca of sports. In a lot of ways, the Bay Area between both sides of the bridge have set the standard for what it is to be a championship-worthy area. And they're not going to have that anymore because the Raiders are gone, the Warriors are on this side of the bridge, and the Oakland A's will be leaving soon. Now, I understand not all of those teams in Oakland have been competitive as of recently, but over the course of 50 years, again, 19 championships is a lot to kind of bask in. And together, they've put forth one of the greatest runs, you know, of the last half century. And that, to me, is what is kind of coming to an end. So when I think of the Bay Bridge series, I don't necessarily think of the individual rivalry between franchises, but what I think of are 2 franchises, 2 sides of the bridge coming together and elevating this area into what has become known as a great sports town, a great sports set of cities. And that's no longer going to be the case.
It's sad. It's sad in the regard that what's happened to Oakland, because it's all about the money and how money has changed sports. And I think Exhibit A is Oakland. Because when you talk about their championships and their titles, those were back primarily in the 70s, 72, 73, 74 with the A's. And, of course, the Raiders won one in the late 70s. And, of course, the Warriors and Rick Barry were in the mid-70s.
76 and 80, I apologize. That was in Oakland. 83 was in L.A.
And when you think about San Francisco, it's more relevant. And the reason is that Oakland back in the day, it's a small market. But small markets could coexist with some of the bigger markets and still be competitive. But what happened is that the money has just exponentially gone through the roof, where if you're a small market, you just simply cannot compete, especially at the baseball level. And as far as football and basketball are concerned, well, it becomes about proximity and in terms of drawing from the San Francisco area as opposed to Oakland. And so what's done in Oakland at the end of the day, it's sort of what's driving the sports today, and that is money at every level and every sport. And while Oakland could compete 3 decades ago, that simply is not the case in 2024, unfortunately.
And it's because they choose not to. I mean, this isn't an owner, and we don't have to, litigate the history. Look, it's a foregone conclusion. The team is moving to Sacramento. Unfortunately, there's not much worth going over, but it is because of ownership, and it is because of what you're talking about. It is because, and we're seeing it not just here in the Bay, but we're seeing it all across the country. Teams want their towns to pay for them to stay, to prove to them that they deserve to be a city that has a sports team, and the asking price just continues to climb exponentially. If you want to keep a team, the owner is going to try and extract every single possible dollar out of you, and that's why I feel like we are very lucky with the Golden State Warriors and the fact that an owner and an ownership group led by Joe Lacob was able to find a way to privately fund a castle on the water in Chase Center. That's very rare. That doesn't happen very often, and it should be the case, but unfortunately, it's not. So, I'm looking forward to going out there and just kind of, remembering, again, all of the great players that have walked through, not just that building, but have worn both the jerseys. Because I do think it is about San Francisco and Oakland, not San Francisco versus Oakland, although they'd be playing on the field, but players that have worn and donned those jerseys throughout the years. And you just go down the list, and it is so long, and it is full of yellow and gold jackets, and it's just full of players that, I don't know, are the reason why you like sports. I mean, I don't know about you. I grew up in the East Bay, and the Oakland Coliseum was a place that I fell in love with the game of baseball at. I don't really know why. I mean, you're just going to a game and you're a kid, but there was something about it, that the mood, the fans, it was kind of infectious. I enjoy going to Giants games as well. I enjoy going to baseball games, and I think the birthplace of that love for me was at the Coliseum, and I think it was for a lot of people. So, again, 888-957-9570, if there's any memories or things you'd like to share about the Bay Bridge series, and again, the final two games between the Oakland A's and the San Francisco Giants are going to be this weekend.
How old were you when Mount Davis came about?
Mount Davis was probably erected far before. I mean, the Raiders moved back, what was it, in the late 80s, early 90s.
That's what changed the landscape for me.
Yeah.
That you talk about just ruining a ballpark from a baseball perspective. I'll never forget, it's indelible, that memory of walking into the Coliseum the first time they closed off the bleachers in center field and had Mount Davis out there. And it was the most suffocating feeling I've ever felt in the ballpark, especially there, where, of course, when you'd sit behind the plate or down either line and you could look out and you could see beyond the bleachers and out to the East Bay Hills. And it was just, it was one of the most picturesque ballparks. Yeah, I'll say that. Prior to the, to that disgusting, whatever it is that whoever came up with the idea, well, obviously they did it for the Raiders to bring them back, but not taking the Oakland A's into account and what it did in terms of ruining the beautification of that stadium was just, to me, that was the end all. I had a hard time enjoying myself at an A's game from that point forward.
No, and I think in a way that kind of, set the tone for where we are of, basically certain sites placating to specific franchises. I mean, Mount Davis was built because it was a way to lure the Raiders back from Los Angeles to Oakland. They were able to add an extra 20,000 seats, and it was started being built in the mid-1990s, finished in 1996. So I was 2 years old. Like, I don't know the Coliseum pre-Mount Davis. I will fully admit that. But it never really was about Mount Davis for me. Like, I grew up going to games and wasn't the biggest Raiders fan, though I had a lot of friends who were Raiders fans. So it was a common, I enjoyed watching Rolando McClain tackle guys at shortstop, and that was the way it was. And towards, September, actually around this time, honestly, the Raiders would be playing preseason games at the Coliseum. And it just, I don't know, it's a place that to me is kind of whatever you make it. Carter, I don't know, jokingly earlier described, the first thing he thought about, or the first thing he's going to notice is, the beauty of the stadium. It's not a beautiful place. We don't have to sugarcoat it, but it's whatever you make of it, right? Like, I remember, a lot of different things that went down in that place. Some good, some bad. I fell in love there. I got my heart broken there. I had my 18th birthday there. I will be having my 30th birthday there tomorrow.
Romance creeps into every platform.
I've cracked quite a few of those at the Oakland Coliseum. I went to my first baseball game there. I remember Miguel Tejada walk-off. I remember Jonas Cespedes' first home run on domestic soil. I remember watching, one of the Bay Area legend, Tyson Ross's MLB debut. He came out of the bullpen and faced a 42-year-old Ken Griffey Jr., who was at the edge of the end of his career. Like, there's so many things that just kind of pop into mind, and I feel like that's what people go down, that sort of memory lane whenever they step into that place.
I know we didn't prep this off the top of my head. Sorry I didn't give you a heads up on this, but if we were to go position by position, maybe we can just stop at third base, start and stop there. And obviously for the Bay Bridge World Series, but I don't know, who's your best third baseman of all time for the Giants? Pablo?
For the Giants? Well, am I allowed to, like, of this era?
Whatever. We'll go back in the day.
Matt Williams, probably.
Oh, Williams. Okay. Yeah. Matt Williams. No,
But
good call.
Pablo's had the biggest moments for sure.
So if you were put them up, and this is sort of, this is solving nothing in the world, certainly in terms of the Middle East crisis. But if we were to determine who was better, if I was to give you the Oakland A's, I'll go Eric Chavez, and you go Matt Williams. Or who's a better third baseman for the A's? If you want to go back to the days.
Well, so this is the thing is you really can go down the list. Like I had a more intimate Chapman. You got Donaldson.
Donaldson back in
won
the day.
MVP the year after he was traded. I mean,
actually, you go way back in the day. There's a guy named Captain Sal Bando.
Cardi Lansford wasn't too bad.
Cardi Lansford, good call.
So at shortstop,
Miggy, you got to go Miggy.
Miguel Tejada, guy had a little bit of extra help, should we say, but he was a fantastic shortstop. Second base, probably go Jeff Kent between the two sides.
Well, I'm trying to think of a good second baseman for that of the Oakland A's.
Well, the guy who played the longest would be Dick Green, certainly. Like Mark Ellis probably had the most games at second base for the Oakland A's. First base, probably Giambi.
Got to go Giambi.
Probably be Giambi.
And much like Tiata, he was in that era, but still, I don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he was.
He was an impossible.
Well, but really, is he going to trump McCovey?
Oh, well, if you want to go that far back, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, McCovey, who, by the way, knocked out Cepeda. They might have had a longer tenure in San Francisco if it wasn't for Pop. Behind home plate, Posey. I don't think there's a discussion there.
Fosse?
I'd take Steinbach over Fosse.
Steinbach? Yeah.
And then when you get to the outfield, it's kind of interesting. Left field for sure is Bonds. In center field, you're probably going down the list.
Coco Crisp.
Covelli Crisp. By the way, I actually got to meet Covelli, a.k.a. Coco Crisp, at an Oakland baseball camp he pulled up to I think it was at Greenman Field. I was like 13 years old. He pulled up in a Rolls Royce. and just like, I couldn't believe it. It was like Superman stepped out of the Batmobile. Switch that around. Batman stepped out of the Batmobile. But like Coco Crisp, also the thing that will always stick in my mind was him knocking out James Shields when he was a member of the Boston Red Sox. But
I'll give you Barry Bonds, but honorable mention, shout out Ricky Henderson. Right, we got to at least mention the name.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason he's not top of mind is because Bond's the greatest player I've ever seen in my life.
No, that's true.
I also, unfortunately, didn't get to see much of Ricky Henderson's, his prime. I saw him toward the end.
When he was playing for 35 different teams.
Dude, the guy could still play. Yeah. I fully believe that.
He probably still is somewhere in Mexico under an alias.
And then in right field, got
to go Reggie.
Oh, yeah? Reggie Jackson. See, this is where your knowledge is just...
Well, I'm trying to think. Right field has never been... I don't know. Do you want to stick Hunter Pence? Or
Hunter Pence is a good call. I'm biased towards Jermaine Dye.
Okay. Yeah, but Jermaine defensively was sort of a liability.
Oh, he's a Gold Glover.
Was he? Okay.
Yeah, the guy had a cannon. But...
so much for that take.
Well, no, I mean, look, and there's so many that's the thing though. It's hard to just whittle it down to one player outside of a couple different positions, and and there's so many random players that pop into your mind. Like my favorite right fielder to watch was Josh Reddick.
Josh Reddick. Well, that was that 2012. That was a fun run with Cespedes, Reddick, Donaldson. Didn't they have that kid Seth Smith, or what was the...
Seth Smith had a big hit.
Out in center field, yeah.
I think it was the 2012 playoffs off Jose Valverde for the Detroit Tigers.
He was, and that was... those were fun teams. There was good personality. That was a fun run during that little 3 to 5 year window for the A's. So, yeah, J.J. Reddick, who's still... He's up with the Mariners?
Josh Reddick.
Reddick.
Yeah, last I checked. He's with the... Sorry, what was that, Carter? Oh, I got you. In that case, let's try to sneak a call in before we hit a break here. Let's go out to Vallejo, talk to our guy Skills. Skills, what's going on? Want to talk about the Battle of the Bay? What's going on?
Hey, good morning, Gavin. Good morning, Dan. Good to be on with you. I just wanted to share a quick story from the Battle of the Bay that I went to in 2009. And it was one of the most fun, memorable times I ever had at a game, and it didn't really have to do with the game. It was the 20-year anniversary of the Giants winning the 89 pennant before they started winning World Series. So they were celebrating on the field. They had all the players back and all that. Craig Lefferts, the former reliever, who must have been in his mid-50s by this point, came flying in, running full speed from the center field wall all the way to the infield. It was awesome to watch. But the most poignant moment, they got to Jose Uribe, who, of course, had passed away a couple years before that. Juan Uribe happened to be on the team, his cousin, and they presented his wife, who was in Jose's place, with something. I forget what it was they presented her with. But she fell apart right there on the field, and Juan was there to comfort her. It was a really nice moment between the Uribe family right there on the field. Then Randy Johnson goes out, wins his 302nd career game, 7 innings. It was just a great time. I'm going to miss the A's. I'm a Giants fan, have been since '90. I'm going to miss the A's. It's really terrible that they're losing like this. Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate that, Skills. Yeah, I think there's a lot of players, or a lot of people that
I'll
that
never
feel that way.
forget Hank Greenwald, who used to call San Francisco Giant games, and his son, I believe, broadcast for the team from time to time. He was just had the driest wit, absolute classic. And so Jose Uribe played with the St. Louis Cardinals, traded to the San Francisco Giants, but his name was Jose Gonzalez, and he was thrown into the deal at the very end. His name was Jose Gonzalez with the Cardinals, changed it to Jose Uribe. And as he came to the Giants, Hank Greenwald, as only Hank Greenwald could do, talked about the trade, and after Jose Uribe had officially changed his name, said, yes, he is officially and will always be known as the player to be named later. Yeah, I sort of blew the bit there. But Jose Uribe, part of that Roger Craig run. Yeah, Craig Lefferts out of the University of Arizona, the left-hander. Yes, he used to sprint in from one of the first true characters coming out of him and Al Hrabosky back in the day.
And we got to hit a break here, but you also just touched on something that also contributes to this rivalry, which is the list of broadcasters that have broadcasted for those two teams.
Begins and ends there.
I mean, Monty Moore, Lon Simmons, John Miller. Those are just the list of guys that have broadcasted for both.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just one side or the other.
Well, Monty Moore only did the A's.
Monty Moore, sorry, but Lon Simmons.
Sure.
And, of course, the late John Miller. John Miller got his start with the Oakland Athletics, in fact.
Yeah.
So, and he's still doing it. It's incredible. But when we come back, I do want to shift this a little bit, of course, to some more baseball specifics. Just trying to figure out what the future of baseball is in the Bay Area. I have some thoughts on that. Also coming up, the San Francisco 49ers. John Lynch, I thought, had some interesting comments yesterday, as did Kyle Shanahan. I thought he was very revealing at the podium yesterday, his stance on where things are with not just Brandon Aiyuk, but also Trent Williams. And then we even got some Warriors news to come up. That's coming up as we roll along here on Saturdays on 95.7 The Game. Evan Giddings and Dan Devone. We're back after this.
Summer. Wait, we need to finish school shopping.
We got this. The kids' favorite Good and Gather snacks at Target are now at a new lower price.
And $5 lunch boxes. Ooh, let's get Luna the Flower Bento Box.
Good idea. And for our Mega Shark fan Max, I got the Shark Backpack. It's only $20.
Even 25-cent select crayons and $6 teas.
And we're done.
Now, where were we?
Cheers to us. When it comes to finishing your supply list, Target has your back to school.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, the timeshare cancellation guy and founder of Wesley Financial Group. And I want to set the record straight. I am not an attorney. I've never wanted to be an attorney. And the truth is, I really don't even like attorneys. If I sound like an attorney or if I look like an attorney, I'll apologize. But what I've learned in my 15 years in the timeshare cancellation business is you don't need to be an attorney to get folks out of their timeshare. At Wesley, we've helped over 40,000 families cancel their timeshare without me being an attorney. And I want to share with you how we do it. Just give my office a call, and you will not talk to an attorney. And I guarantee if we take you as a client, we'll get you out of your timeshare, or you'll pay nothing.
Call now for your free timeshare exit info kit. 800-656-1551. That's 800-656-1551. 800-656-1551.
Are you curious about who offers the best deals on top-rated Samsung, LG, and Sony TVs? The answer is surprising. It's not online, and it's not the warehouse clubs. The best deals on top-rated TVs are at Video Only. Don't believe it? Then check out the trade-in deals at Video Only. How about $500 for your old TV? Try doing that online. Before you buy that new TV, drop into Video Only. If you don't, you'll be sorry.
Golden State Window and Door Design is proud to be a Marvin direct dealer with showrooms around the Bay Area. For your convenience, builders and designers can find the largest inventory of Marvin windows and the support from a factory-trained sales team, making Golden State Northern California's leading Marvin dealer. To get started, visit goldenstatelumber.com. Find out why contractors and builders have relied on Golden State for over 70 years. Golden State. When you succeed, we succeed.
1877 Cars for Kids. KARS Cards for Kids. 1877 Cards for Kids. Donate your card today.
1877 Cars for Kids. KARS Cars for Kids. 1877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
Donate your car today at carsforkids.org. That's cars with a K. Your car, running or not, can be picked up as soon as the next day. You'll get a maximum tax deduction and a vacation voucher.
1877 Cars for Kids. KARS Cars for Kids. 1877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
Now accepting donations of land, homes, buildings, or any kind of real estate.
My friends swim no matter the season, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can sometimes take me out of the moment. Now, thanks to Skyrizi and clear skin, count me in. With Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
Your coworkers might annoy you, but we promise we won't. Download the free Odyssey app and you can listen to us at work while you tackle your inbox or get ready for another meeting that probably could have been an email. Tune in late? You can rewind your favorite live shows to catch what you missed. And with Chapters, easily jump to the topics that you care about most, like the latest updates from your team. Your sports talk, your way. The Odyssey app. Download it today.
Ember Stomp 2024, Marin's Wildfire Safety Festival, a free event for the whole family. Learn to protect your family and home. September 7th, Marin Civic Center Fairgrounds.
Now back to 95.7 The Game.
All right, Evan Giddings, Dan Devone with Carter Chickering rocking with you here on a Saturday morning, as we do always on 95.7 The Game. Going down memory lane a little bit. Final Bay Bridge series this weekend. Look, the Giants are 62-62. The A's, I think, 18 games under 500. The game's less about baseball, I think, than it is a celebration of what baseball used to be in the Bay Area. And unfortunately, where it's headed, which is up north in Sacramento, there's still going to be games between them and all the rest, Dan. But, you grew up going to A's games. I obviously grew up going to A's games. We're from opposite sides of the bridge, but it does feel like, and this is what I've sort of seen having gone to some A's and Giants games at both sides over the last couple of years, there just appears to be, I don't know, like an understanding. Baseball fans are a little different, I think, than, football and basketball, at least when you're attending. Like, when I think of a football rivalry game, I think of, gladiators. I think of, big rah-rah parking lot, people yelling at each other, maybe an occasional beer drank together, but it's not necessarily like the parking lot. First of all, there aren't that many places you can tailgate anymore. Yeah, there's not many places you can go into a parking lot, sit down, get the barbecue out, throw some Franks on the grill. I don't know, toss the pigskin around. You just can't do that very many places anymore.
But you can in Oakland.
You still can. Well, at least for the next couple months. And I mean, that's what I'm going to be doing later today. Probably doing a little bit tomorrow. And it's also like, I was thinking about this actually when I was up in Seattle, your former neck of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they got a beautiful ballpark up there. They got a beautiful football stadium. I know a lot of Niners fans don't want to hear that, but Lumen Field is gorgeous. There's nowhere you can just sit before the game and hang out unless you're at a pub.
Well, again, it gets back to what I said earlier, how money has played such a significant role in changing the landscape of all of this. So most of the ballparks have moved downtown or south or north of a downtown area. And so what it is that they're trying to do is infuse the economy with all those surrounding pubs and bars. And so it's not about the fans and tailgating and bringing your own food and beverage, but rather going and spending money, because a lot of the economy in those downtown areas throughout whatever name your professional sport is reliant on the respective baseball teams. So again, the paradigm in all of this has just changed, and money has influenced a lot of it.
Where do you think Bay Area baseball goes from here? I do wonder, a theory that I have, and it's not, look, the Giants are in kind of a tough place. Like, I was going through some of the Moneyball era teams, and I guess the A's are technically still in it. But since Billy Beane took over as general manager in 1998, the A's have only had one stretch in which they did not make the playoffs. It was like 1 out of 8 years. They made the playoffs once in 8 years. Like, that was their worst postseason drought. The Giants are coming up, if they don't make the playoffs this season, in the Farhan Zaidi era, in 1 of 6. I do wonder if the San Francisco Giants, and they got a larger payroll, but the way that they are constructed, the way that the roster appears to be, Dan, it kind of does remind me a lot of the A's. The way that they're put together as far as, jigsaw, puzzling pieces, cobbled, trying to figure out how they can sort of match this guy and use this particular player's strength. A few younger players coming up here and there, but never a supremely dominant team. If they do have a season like 2021, it's kind of, a band of losers coming together, guys you didn't expect to perform at the level that they did outside of a couple of mainstays. And I guess I'm just afraid for San Francisco Giants fans that when the A's are gone, that there's not really going to be much motivation from an ownership or upper management standpoint to basically try and put together the best product, because you're going to have everyone's attention anyways.
Well, I still think there's going to be the pressure to win and get to the playoffs, whether
you want to be competitive, but
A's are here or not. I don't know how much Farhan thinks about the Oakland A's. I mean, this could be his market, but his job is still in jeopardy. And although I think you believe he's still going to come back, I would say that when you're talking about comparing the Oakland A's and the San Francisco Giants, yeah, there are some connective tissues, but very, very dissimilar when you think about Billy Beane and Farhan. Because the Oakland A's clearly had a structure in place in terms of what it is that they wanted to do. And it started at the minor league level in terms of Moneyball and taking pitches and the sort of players that they wanted and all the algorithms. They were one of the first, right, to apply math to all of this. There was clearly a template in terms of what it is they were doing with these young castaways and these players that they just simply couldn't afford. And when they got to the point, like the Miguel Tejadas, the Giambis of the world, and they could demand that big money in free agents, well, then they would go somewhere else. And the A's knew this, but they immediately would replenish them with a new core or recruits that would come in doing it the Oakland A's way. I would say that the San Francisco Giants, yes, they're young, they're old, but it seems much more misguided. I really don't know the direction of what it is that Farhan's trying to do here. And maybe we can get into this a little bit later, but I think a perfect example is when we did a show at the trade deadline 3 weeks ago, and he said, we can bring up the quote that Soler's out. This is going to be an opportunity for Luciano. Luciano played for 2 weeks and is back down. I mean, to me, when you think about Farhan and the direction of where it is that he wants to take the San Francisco Giants as opposed to Billy Beane back in the day, I have no idea what it is that Farhan's doing right now. And this isn't, I didn't want to take it there where we pile on Farhan, but I think in comparing the two franchises, I think the Oakland A's back in their heyday clearly had an idea of what it is that they wanted to do and where they were going. And I don't think that can be applied to Farhan. But your point is well taken. When this market is all theirs, yeah, you're going to reap the benefits of from an economic standpoint, but I still believe that in professional sports that you still got to win, and especially for a team like that of the Giants that are synonymous with titles of that recent run. That the noose is getting a little tighter on guys like Farhan, as well as Bob Melvin as the season goes along if they miss the playoffs.
Yeah, but even broadening it from the front office, and maybe I'm just naive, but I do feel like when the A's are in Sacramento, there's less motivation to put out a product that will really, I should say, there's less of an incentive to go deeper into your coffers to get as competitive as possible. What I think the Giants are aiming towards, and
what do you predicate that on? I'm curious.
It's just a theory I have, because anytime there's less competition in any market, you're not going to work as hard. I just think that's human nature. Like, I just feel like people become...
So you think they were that competitive with the Oakland A's these last 10 years?
No. I don't think they're competitive necessarily, but I do think that with the amount of money that you have to put into specific clubs, the amount of money that the Giants, for example, are paying this year, I don't think they ever want to pay this much money again for a team that's 500. I think they're going to try and find ways, whether it's with Farhan or somebody else that they get in here. I think they're going to try and find ways to decrease costs and remain competitive, to be good.
Well, I actually think that'll make them more competitive, but go ahead.
Well, I think getting rid of Farhan is, that's a conversation we're going to have from now until whenever it happens.
Sure.
But as far as the Giants' direction, I don't know, Dan. Like, to me, I just don't think they're going to have an issue with filling that ballpark, no matter how good or bad they are. And not that it's because they're taking the 5,000 fans a game from the Oakland A's, but just the general interest of the team. I think there are so many disgruntled fans over in the East Bay, and I have a few of them that are friends. Look, if you're going to be a diehard A's fan and follow them up the Sac and over to Las Vegas, that's your prerogative. If they are dead to you and you're never going to watch baseball again, I think that's also on the table. How you deal with your fandom is completely up to you. But I also think, and I have a few of these friends that are going to start to become Giants fans because they love baseball and they love the Bay Area. And the only Bay Area baseball team left standing outside of the Oakland Ballers, but professional Major League level baseball team is the San Francisco Giants. And I just feel like the Giants now, who have always sort of dominated the television market, there's less incentive for them to get competitive outside of just wanting it. And I haven't seen this ownership group, I don't know about you, Dan, I haven't seen this ownership group in San Francisco want it. I've seen them put people in place, 10, 15 years ago that were smart and that helped them get to the mountaintop. But since that point, I haven't felt any, to take the words out of John Lynch's mouth yesterday, urgency to get this team out of the doldrums. I haven't seen it yet over the last 6 years.
So do you think that it's more of just sort of a financial play? Much like that of the Chicago Cubs, if you ever spent any time in Chicago. Now the Cubs obviously spend money, but for years and decades, the Cubs were just good playing 500 baseball. Why? Because it was Wrigley Field, for crying out loud. It was the north side, and it was just like another party. It was like another bar down there. And in the middle of the afternoon, when they played primarily their games, day games at Wrigley, you were going to sell out. And nobody was really there. I shouldn't say nobody. There were Cub fans, but you were there to much like you, find romance, as you did back in the day at the Coliseum, or have a cold one.
More on the field than off.
It was a play. It was someplace to hang out. And they financially benefited. And they knew that they could roll anybody out there. And they didn't necessarily play for World Series or for titles, but they were going to do well at the gate and financially and with all their merch and all those myriad of revenue arteries, and financially they were able to be competitive. So there's precedence here that if you're the San Francisco Giants, and you're the only, you're the only cow on the farm, and you're just the last man standing, that economically, that you're going to do well. And for a lot of people, that's sort of the bottom line. Look at Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, they haven't been to a Super Bowl in 94, but that guy makes money hand over fist just simply because the product is relevant, just from a PR standpoint. So if that's the bottom line for the San Francisco Giants, then, it's sort of evident that they don't necessarily go as hard as other teams. And I think the Niners are a good comparison.
Well, to take your Cowboys analogy, I do think it's proven there's a way to increase the value of your brand without actually winning. It's to be in the public light. And the Giants aren't, look, they're not a national, in my opinion, like they're a historic franchise, but they are not, nationally speaking, a team that is known as one of the premier brands of baseball. They are historically great, but when you think of the MLB, when you think of Major League Baseball, I don't know where the Giants come up. They're not in my top five. They're not. Unfortunately, they're not the Dodgers right now. They're certainly not the Yankees. Even the Phillies to some extent. There are other teams that I think that come up before them at this point. And right now, I think the Giants. Look, one of the reasons that I just feel like philosophically they've kind of morphed into an A's team with actual money is just the way that they've been run. It feels like they try to identify particular players that are hidden gems, diamonds in the rough, and kind of praying that they turn into something. And, well, not praying, but, hoping. Like, the Giants, to me, Dan, and I don't feel like they have a direction. At least the A's had that at least 20 years ago. I don't think they really have had a direction the last few years outside of getting out of Oakland. But the San Francisco Giants are devoid of direction, and that is a place you do not want to be. However, if you're still making money and you're still breaking even and you're even pulling a profit, well, then why should you do business any differently? And again, I think it comes down to the bottom line for a lot of these owners of how much money you're making. And this year they're going to perhaps be losing money because of their payroll, because of the taxes that they've accrued. And I think that's also a reason why, to go back to the trade deadline, which you brought up a few minutes ago, is why they moved off of someone like Jorge Soler. It's not just because they wanted to get money off the books this season, but because they did not want any part of the remaining 36-ish, or I think maybe perhaps $26-ish million that were on the books in the future. So I wonder what the Giants are going to do this offseason as far as spending goes, because they spent a ton of money this offseason, and it turned into a 500 ball club where they already were the last 2 years anyways. And we know that sports are very reactionary. And a reaction to this season, to me, naturally, would just be to dial it back and say, well, if you're telling me, Farhan, or whoever's in charge at the end of this offseason heading into next season, if you're telling me that we can cut payroll, slash it by $50 million, which isn't absurd. They're already a top 10 payroll team in MLB. If we could slash it by $50 million and still have a pretty good chance, a decent chance to make that third wild card, maybe make a run, I don't see why ownership would push against that.
The thing you have to keep in mind is that the Giants make money. And so while they spent a lot of money this offseason, they have the money to spend it, okay? Especially when Crawford and a lot of those guys came off the books. The Giants are in the black as far as revenue in Major League Baseball, right? Like they're a team that makes money, wherein lies a lot of the frustration, because the New York Yankees make money, the Los Angeles Dodgers make money, but they also spend it. Nobody spends more money than those two teams. The Giants, I want to say, and I brought it up here, the Giants, so it goes Yankees, Dodgers, Red Sox, Giants.
As far as value.
In terms of value.
Well, to me, that's even more of a reason why they shouldn't be doing anything differently.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
Yeah, no.
Like if you're telling me they're the fourth highest valued franchise in Major League Baseball, well then, from an economic standpoint, they're right where they should be.
But I think at some point you got to win, because that's not sustainable. You got to throw in, at least get to the playoffs and be competitive, as the before mentioned teams are. So the Giants, listen, New York and LA are bigger markets, obviously. Those are the 1-2 markets in the country. I want to say San Francisco is somewhere around 6 or 7. So at some point, you do have to be relevant as far as winning. I don't simply think you can mail it in over an extended period of time and still be profitable and not win at some point.
The most valuable franchise in sports in the world is the Dallas Cowboys. They just cracked the $10 billion mark. And I understand that they make the playoffs and they win games, but they're the proverbial punching bag of every pundit on television. I mean, they haven't won anything since 1995. I don't know if they've even got to an NFC championship since that point.
No.
This isn't a team that is known for winning over the last 30 years. That's courtesy of Carter. And they still, hand over fist, pulling money. The Giants, to a lesser extent, I just feel like do that. To a lesser extent. So the fact that they're still making money, the fact that they're still up there in the top 5, I hear what you're saying, and to me that it sounds, that is the quintessential fan perspective. And if I'm covering the Giants, and I will be, and been out to a lot of games this year with Carter, and like you want to cover a great team. You want to cover a good team. It's more fun. The media coverage is better. Players are more open. They're more talkative. The manager's having fun. You can josh with the clubby. It's a party in the locker room. All that's great. But at the end of the day, if you're telling me that this San Francisco Giants franchise is worth the amount of money that it's worth and it's continuing to grow, well, then nobody in that boardroom or wherever they meet and in the ownership council is going to feel like they're in a poor place. And again, it's less of an incentive to me to try and go all in. Like, ideally, in a perfect world, the San Francisco Giants should operate the way that the Boston Red Sox did from about the year 2000 until perhaps 2018-19 when they handed it over to Kyle Bloom. And that is a team that is built on an analytic foundation, but willing to invest money and find players that can contribute at a very high level. The Boston Red Sox were the Moneyball A's with cash, and that's why they won the amount of World Series that they did. Now, they've taken a different direction. They're trying to steer it back. But the San Francisco Giants, to me, they have a rich tradition that they also do a very good job of upholding. They honor their players, and most recently, the core forward, the bullpen members, all the rest. They have a great alumni network. They have people that come back, that believe in the team, players that speak greatly about this franchise, but they don't have the product. And I don't see an incentive right now for them to change the product when they're still being rewarded for it.
I don't know how fair it is to say that they haven't made an attempt and that they're just, a team that's going to make money hand over fist regardless of what it is that they do. I honestly believe that they tried to go out and spend money. The difference between the Giants and San Francisco as opposed to the Dodgers and the Yankees and the before-mentioned Red Sox is that San Francisco specifically, the ballpark is unique in terms of, because when we're talking about spending money, I'm assuming we're talking about going out and getting whatever it is that the market bears in terms of free agents. Shohei Ohtani is not going to be Shohei Ohtani playing here. There's a reason why the San Francisco Giants don't play well at home, but yet go on the road and suddenly they hit home runs. And those home runs, when they come back here, are warning track outs. The team is built very in a unique, think about when they were winning titles. It was gap to gap. It was triples alley, and it was pitching. It was sort of, was cobbled together, and you had that perfect sort of locker room, and there was a spirit. But building a winner in San Francisco is atypical than that of the Dodgers, the Yankees, and the Red Sox, where you could just go out and get the biggest thumper that baseball has to offer. Just let him sit on his heels and hit 35 jacks a year and give you 100 ribbies and be that guy. You're not doing that in San Francisco. See Jorge Soler. I mean, it's been proven time and time again that I think that part of, in defending the San Francisco Giants, building a winner, it has to be a little bit, you have to be a little bit more innovative. And it's a little bit more challenging in San Francisco simply because the city, the ballpark isn't conducive to getting those big name agents that oftentimes are the prize pigs in every offseason of free agency.
But I think that innovation, philosophically speaking, is where the A's do factor in because, and it's not just because Farhan has ties to the A's, but I do think there is this idea that you can do more with less. And if it's going to cost you less, especially coming off of a season like this in which you invested the amount of money that you did, I just feel like, look, there's always a reaction at the end of every season for every sports team based on what happened in a probably, small sample size. Well, the Giants have a large sample size. In fact, it's been the last 5 years, coming up on 6. And that larger sample size, some years they've bought. Some years they've had to stand pat. Nothing has seemed to work. And so that's why I feel like the last 3 seasons, if you look at, 500, last year there were 4, they ended up 3 or 4 games below 500. This year they are literally a 500 baseball team. It does not matter how much money they've spent. And so to me, the natural correction for them is to try and lean into what you're talking about, which I think is, building from the ground up. We've used the word rebuild a lot with the Giants, but leaning more into a developmental system. And that also means young, cheap labor. And so if you spend the amount of money that you have trying to get the Snells and the Chapmans and the Solairs to some extent, and it hasn't worked, well then, if I'm looking at this thing, you have not been able as, a manager or a general manager to extract a better result out of your talent. So again, like if we're at the radio station and things aren't going great or they're going fantastic, you're going to find a way to get cheaper because over the course of time, I don't know. To me, Dan, like it is natural for me to expect that the reaction to this season for the San Francisco Giants is going to be to get cheaper, and I don't think they're going to be any less competitive. And maybe we can get into that more on the other side. I also want to get your thoughts on the San Francisco 49ers because they are a team that is competitive. They are a team that is looking at Super Bowl hopes this upcoming season. And Carter was also down at training camp this week. And there was a couple of things that came out yesterday. I know Friday isn't usually a news dump day, but there was a couple of things that caught my eye that I want to get into. And hour number 2 as we roll on
Big
here.
Chick next.
On Saturdays. Evan Giddings, Dan Devone on 95.7 The Game. We're back after this.
Hey, it's Willard and Dibbs. Enjoy these amazing deals at Safeway for their members. And as always, earn 4 times reward points on hundreds of exclusive offers with the Safeway app. Signature Select pork spare ribs sold whole in a bag. $3.99 per pound, a major bag alert.
It's a major bag alert. I love spare ribs and also sweet.
1970s. You look like John Brody.
I think this was Morton Anderson's at one point. The one bar kicker, or was that Gary Anderson?
Gary Anderson.
I always get them confused.
Well, yeah, that's a good look, my man.
Yeah, David Akers, I think, wore this back in the day. Evan Giddings, Dan Devone here on 95.7 The Game. And
you ever heard of a kicker named Sean Landetta?
No, who's that?
Kick with the New York Giants. And a good punter. I want to say like early 2000s and the 90s. Go ahead. That reminds me, I used to wear those things, and my brother used to just terrorize me when I was a kid. I had like this Oakland Raider helmet, and he just drag me around by the face mask, and I'd be looking out of the ear hole just crying. But anyways. Yeah, Sean Landetta, kick with the New York Giants. The guy got more attractive women, I'm trying to put this politely, than any player you've ever seen. Now, obviously, it was New York City, but I mean more than whoever the starting quarterback was back in the day, and he was this pudgy, just very unassuming player on the team. And I am telling you,
he cleaned up more than Phil Simms.
Go look at Sean Landetta and the history, the record, the women that he dated and hung out with in New York City for just this lumpy punter. The guy, he got it done off the field. So,
oh, my God.
He was a winner on and off. I'm looking at him right now. This guy had a nice handlebar mustache. I can tell you that, Dan.
All right. We'll leave it at that.
Well, but I also want to leave it at
Someone brought up the Niners haven't won since 95 either in terms of a Super Bowl. And because we were dogging the Dallas Cowboys, who haven't been to a championship game since 95.
That is true. But I also think, look, there's always a space for me, and maybe I'm different than a lot of sports fans. I don't know how you feel about this, Devone. Yes, it is about winning championships, but I do have to also account for how successful you are if you don't. And the Niners have been to multiple Super Bowls, 3 of which in my lifetime. They've been to countless NFC championship games. I know they haven't won it, but my comparison using the Cowboys was about how much they're worth. Again, $10 billion as of, I think, earlier this week via Forbes. And they have not been to an NFC title game since 1995. So I have not seen a Dallas Cowboys team win multiple playoff games enough to even get back to the point where they could assume or presume that they could get to a Super Bowl. So, to me, comparing the Niners and the Cowboys, yes, they have not won Super Bowls, but
2 entirely different franchises.
They're very, very different. Also, the way they're run. The way that, when you think of the Cowboys, you think of Jerry Jones. When I think of the 49ers, I think of their players. And that, to me, is the mark of a franchise that I take legitimately.
And I think that you have to sort of stand by the thought process that just getting to Super Bowls, whether you win one or not, that just, I always remind people it's an oval ball. Where that thing bounces, who the hell knows? But just getting there and then letting the stars align if you win or you don't win. But getting to the Super Bowl, that's the mountain you want to climb. And the 49ers have shown that they've been a winning franchise, whereas the Dallas Cowboys have not. The Dallas Cowboys, I always repeat this, and I've said this for years, that they will not win a Super Bowl. They will not get back to that NFC championship game. They won't get to where it is that everybody has talked about, whether you like them because they divide the room as much as the Yankees or any other New York team. You either love or hate the Cowboys, which is why they are so successful. But until Jerry Jones is 8 feet under, and I know that sounds pretty morbid, but until that man perishes from the earth, they will never win a Super Bowl. Mark it down. He gets in his own way time and time. Look at what they're dealing with right now. You could have signed Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons is right behind him. It's just a mess. He does this all the time. He is the worst owner / GM while at the same time being the best owner in the NFL.
I was going to say, see, I can't go that far because when you talk about ownership, it's about money.
Yeah.
It's about green.
But in terms of winning, which I truly believe he wants to do, he has no idea, and it's been proven time and time again. Since he kicked Jimmy Johnson out of the building, there's never been somebody in place with hairspray and a hairdo as both of those men exhibit.
Yeah, Switzer.
They will not win until he won't obviously leave the team. He's not going to step aside. So when you go to his funeral, Cowboy fans, from that point forward is when you'll have that opportunity at finally winning that elusive Super Bowl.
Yeah, in many ways, it's kind of like Al Davis towards the end. I think. Like, Al Davis is a winner. I mean, he's the owner, decision maker, won championships with the Raiders a long time ago. But towards the end, I think it was fair for a lot of people who called him senile.
He lost touch. I don't think Jerry Jones is there yet, but it's more subtle that he doesn't know what the hell he's doing in terms of management. As an owner, I mean, he's Barnum and Bailey.
Well, that's where you got to allow people to take over and make decisions for you. And in fact, to bring it to the 49ers, who also kick off tomorrow, let's at 5:15 against the Saints, I believe, week 2 of the preseason.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. So 5 o'clock kickoff between the 49ers and the Saints. We're going to get to see Brock Purdy play in the preseason for the first time.
All the starters, I believe.
Yeah, the majority of them. At least going to get one series, perhaps two. Well, not all the starters.
That's true.
Brandon Aiyuk and Trent Williams are not going to be there. At least I would assume, even if they sign by the end of the show. But to bring it to the 49ers, that's where, to me, Jed York has taken strides, taken steps. He has put people in positions around him that are good decision makers. And he's put his trust in them because you can't do everything. Whether you're a football expert or you know nothing about the game, you are going to need some help. And I think that Jed York has positioned his front office and coaching staff, by extent, in a spot where they are competitive year in and year out. And so I agree with you, Dan. With Jerry Jones, I don't think the Cowboys will ever win a Super Bowl. But with regards to this season and the San Francisco 49ers, where would you place their chances to win the Super Bowl this year?
The 49ers?
Currently, yes.
Well, I'd put them as the team to beat in the NFC. I think that, going in now, obviously, you never know in terms of injuries and what's going to take place throughout the course of a game and a season. But that's the team on paper to come out of the NFC. I think, how improved is Green Bay? Are they going to continue to take steps? Detroit seems to be real. So there's some obstacles, and Philadelphia is always in the hunt. But certainly my money's on the Niners to get back there. Again, whether you win that Super Bowl or not, who the hell knows? But getting there, I see them as the favorite, no doubt.
I think they're the favorite, but I think there's a lot more resistance than there was a year ago. Like last year, there were no excuses. And I guess to some extent, there's no excuses this year. But to me, Dan, the odds have changed. Like if last year they were, 2 or 3 to 1 favorites to make the Super Bowl out of the NFC, it's dropped a bit closer to, I think, 5 to 1, 6 to 1.
Who do you think is challenging them?
Well, I think it's a combination of other teams taking steps forward and the Niners taking a step back, because I don't think they're as talented as last year's group. And much more is going to be on the shoulders of Brock Purdy, even assuming that Brandon Aiyuk eventually figures out his contract situation. I believe he will. And Trent Williams is back in the fold, because I'm looking at an NFC. I think the Eagles are improved. And I think that they were a collapse away.
But that Sirianni thing is going to get ugly, I think. The Sirianni Hurts sort of disconnect, and he doesn't really know what it is that's going on offensively.
Yeah, but I think that, I don't believe Sirianni is a great head coach, but I also think that Kellen Moore is a pretty damn good play caller. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a big reason why they were successful a couple of years ago with Shane Steichen as the OC. And getting Kellen Moore in there now is going to help them get back on track. I also think being able to pick up Saquon Barkley is going to help them quite a bit. Oh. Defensively, I'm a little worried, but I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be competitive. I think you're right about the Detroit Lions. I think you can't write off the Green Bay Packers. A Chicago Bears team that's probably a year away is going to be markedly better. I think the Los Angeles Rams are going to give the 49ers a run for their money in their division. So again, I think the Niners are the team to beat in the NFC. But I think that their path to the Super Bowl is looking to me like it's much more difficult than a year ago.
Yeah, I know. When you think that they're not, I don't know if I can go there when you say that they're not as good as they were a year ago, or that they've. I forgot how you phrased it.
I don't think they're as talented.
See, the reason why I would stop short of saying that is because Brock Purdy is getting more experience with every game, and it's a quarterback-centric league, as we all know. And this is this is another opportunity and more games for him to sort of even get better than he was. Now, is he going to put up the same sort of numbers? Doubtful. But I still think he's going to be a better quarterback. The Aiyuk situation obviously is fluid. You're better with him. If it's not Aiyuk, then you need somebody at wide receiver, right? Aside from Ricky Pearsall, somebody proven. But I still think the 49ers are clearly the team to beat. Does that mean that they're going? You have no idea. But I think as of right now, where we sit in the middle of August and in our second preseason game, that it's the 49ers that are at the top of the mountain in the NFC.
They are. I just don't think that the mountain is as steep as it was a year ago. And that's why last year sucks for a lot of Niners fans, because it was an incredible chance to win it all. I mean, if you're looking around the NFL, I think a lot of the top dogs are in the AFC. But because of the gauntlet that is the AFC, I think the Niners should feel good about their chances. It was interesting, though, because you brought up Aiyuk, and Shanahan was asked about it yesterday. And I want to get your thoughts on this, Sound Dan, because he was asked if there was a point in which he would fine Brandon Aiyuk, who is holding in still. Reports, the latest from ESPN's Mike Garafolo, is that they're ironing out the last year of his deal, that the first 3 years of the wide receiver's contract have been sorted out. But the issue right now in the holdup, it seems to be guaranteed money in the fourth and final year. And I have thoughts on that in a moment, but I want to hear yours on what Kyle Shanahan had to say when asked about whether or not he would fine Brandon Aiyuk.
I mean, I think it has to do with when they have injuries and stuff, so I don't sit there and kind of play that game. That's how the league works right now. I mean, that's how the rules are. You have a hold-in, guys usually have something wrong with them, so they can keep doing that. And so I just coach the team.
And so this is kind of the key detail about Aiyuk, is that he's technically injured. He's listed out with a back injury. So they can't fine him if he's hurt. But I also think that Shanahan gave us a little insight with the follow-up question. I believe this was from Mike Silver.
I want to make sure I understand. Are you saying if there's a hold-in and you force the issue that you would expect like a Jalen Ramsey in Jacksonville type of situation where, oh, my back hurts and I'm just not playing?
I'm just saying when you guys call it a hold-in, and I'm not disagreeing with you guys on that, but people say that they're hurt. I think BA's got a sore back right now, and it is what it is.
That sounds like a guy to me who's a little perturbed with his wide receiver.
Yeah, this is where you didn't want it to get. Like, this is what can really contaminate a locker room. That a guy feigning an injury while everybody else is out there playing, just so that he can work a loophole and get paid. Shanahan's not down with that. And so this has to be resolved one way or the other, because this is not a recipe to continue into the season. I think it's reached a point where Kyle Shanahan emotionally, and as we know, he can be very emotional in terms of his decision-making. So this has to be either sign on the dotted line, trade him, or make him play. But this limbo is not healthy for anybody. And especially when you're talking about potentially having that trickle down and contaminate what I always think is sort of that sacred place. Because if you get the locker room right at any sport, it translates to wins and losses on the field.
I agree. The thing that strikes me about that comment is that Shanahan is essentially admitting to the media that what they believe it to be a hold-in is what he also believes. But the Jalen Ramsey comp, I think, is key, because Ramsey in Jacksonville was trying to get a new contract and basically showed up to camp and was like, yeah, I got a bum leg. I can't practice. They can't make you practice. But everyone and their mom knows that you can practice, and that what it really is about is money. And Kyle Shanahan has no problem with it being about money. He's been in the game long enough. But I think he's also an old school guy. And I think Kyle Shanahan would prefer that if this is about money, well, just don't show up then. Don't be there. Don't make a circus every single day. And this is also something that I feel like anybody can relate to. If you go to work and someone is in the middle of a contract negotiation, you have no problem. They're trying to get their money. They're trying to get what's duly deserved. But then they're hanging around the office They're still sitting in on meetings. They're still, in the case of Brandon Aiyuk, on the side in Niners gear or Niners colored gear, doing sprints with some of the other injured players, kind of halfway in, halfway out. And some people might look at that and say, well, he's just being a good teammate. He wants to be around. He loves the guys. I've been pro Brandon Aiyuk this entire time. I believe he deserves to get paid. I think he's an important piece if the Niners are to get to where you want them to, Dan, and get back to the Super Bowl. But I also think that he's got to make a choice. And the choice isn't necessarily signing or not signing. The choice is, are you going to actually make it about the money and tell people what this has always been about? Or are you kind of just going to linger and still be the sideshow? That's the only thing that I have an issue with, is that Brandon Aiyuk has made this a sideshow. And it shouldn't be. It should be about getting paid. And I don't have a problem with the way that CeeDee Lamb is holding out in Dallas. I don't have a problem with the way that the Bengals are handling the Jamar Chase situation, because there appears to be a clear understanding of those two wide receivers' goals to get their bread. Brandon Aiyuk is, every single time he's out there, and Carter's been at training camp, every time he's been out there, I get a text from him and say, oh, well, Aiyuk's doing this, or everybody's got all eyes on Aiyuk. And he knows that. He's making it about him and not about the team. And that's what I have a problem with.
And I think it has to come to a head, because Kyle Shanahan, as he just intimated in that sound pop, is fed up with this. And it can't continue. Because, again, this has a domino effect. And you just don't want that guy in the room. Either sign him, or we can all say, welcome back to the fold, high fives and hugs, and let's get after it. Let's start week one and get after the Jets in marching towards another Super Bowl. Or, yes, hold out and or trade the guy. But this cannot continue. Because, and you mentioned this last week, because I put it to you, I said one of the few leverage plays that he has is that if they make him play, because at the end of the day, the 49ers still have him under contract for $14.1 million. One of the few leverage plays that Brandon Aiyuk has is that he can say, all right, I'll play, but I don't want to be here. And he can be disgruntled. And he can be that 900-pound elephant in the locker room. And to me, that can be as detrimental as anything else on a professional football, baseball, or basketball team. But, you illuminated me by pointing out the fact that, highlighting the fact that he's never been that guy. That he has never been somebody that's been difficult, or nor do you hear him chirp from time to time, or being passive-aggressive and using sort of the media as a crutch, as you oftentimes hear from standout wide receivers like that of a Devontae Adams, or fill in the blank, that they need more passes their way. They're not happy. So how do you wrap your arms around this? Is he that guy or is he not? Because right now he looks as though he's being that prima donna that does not care about anything else but himself.
Well, just because you haven't been that in the past doesn't mean that you don't have the capacity to be it in the future. Like, I think this is the first time that I believe that Aiyuk has made it about Aiyuk. And it's not that I don't like it as much as I'm hearing Kyle Shanahan doesn't like it. And that does matter. What I think, what you think, what Carter thinks, what people think around the Bay Area about what Brandon Aiyuk is doing or not doing, quite frankly, doesn't matter to the team. But if Kyle Shanahan sounds dissatisfied and frustrated with the fact that he has to go up here every single day and answer these questions, and I think this is a fair one, by the way, from the Xfinity Mobile text line from the 510, why does the media continue to pry when they know the answer and all they want is a soundbite to make people feel bad? I don't think it's about making someone feel bad. I think it's about figuring out where the team is at so that we can assess how great the chances of the Niners winning or getting back to the Super Bowl is. And right now, I do not hear a team that is as connected as they were last year. And it's not just because of Brandon Aiyuk. It's because of the 49ers front office. I mean, they could have given him whatever his final ask is. If the details are truly the final and fourth year or the future of 3 years, if that's the only detail, well, then the Niners do have some, they do have their hands on this. They do. They are responsible for this not being done to some extent. They could just give him that fourth and final year.
But no one guarantees the last year.
And that's the hang up, is that Aiyuk clearly wants that. So I don't mind that. I don't mind you wanting to get every single last penny. I mean, that's what Bosa did last offseason. He took the bank from the 49ers. But there also has to be, at least in my opinion, maybe this just is how I am, I don't think making it a sideshow is the right way to go. I don't think that's going to further Aiyuk's leverage. I don't think that's going to help him in the long run get what he wants, because if they truly are at the 2-yard line, well, then what's the point of showing up and saying, well, I'm hurt, so I can't practice, and that means you can't find me? By the way, and I don't know how you feel about this, Carter, the 49ers can forgive his fines. Like if Aiyuk didn't show up to camp or wasn't out there on the practice field and got fined, whatever Trent Williams is currently being fined, they could forgive that.
Well, what about game checks?
Game checks they also can forgive for a guy on a rookie deal. They can't do it after, but they can forgive Brandon Aiyuk right now. I don't know. Where do you kind of come down on this, Carter?
I mean, they're going to cover that, of what he's missed. There's just no doubt about it. I mean, there's no way that he's going to be happy with them saying you need to eat these fines, basically. Whatever the new contract's going to be, it's going to be covering whatever he's missed. There's no doubt. Same with Trent Williams.
Well, Trent, they can't forgive. I think he's going to be back, and he also doesn't need the money. The thing about Aiyuk that kind of confuses me is if this has always been about the fine money, right? I think that's why he showed up in the first place, why he's holding in, is because he doesn't want to get fined.
Well, Trent, they can't forgive, right? But they can write into his new contract that he can be paid basically retrospectively, I think, for what he's missed, is what I've understood.
Yeah, and we can get to Trent Williams on the other side, but just my final thoughts on Aiyuk is I don't understand the need to be around, to be seen, to kind of use the optical lens to further your leverage when it sounds like you're already where you need to be anyways. The last thing that needs to get ironed out is the 4th year of the contract. That's as close to the goal line as I've heard this entire time. And it sounds like he's gotten and extracted more money out of the 49ers as this thing has played out. So he has achieved his goal by not signing at the beginning of the offseason, by getting to this point and getting more money. So then what's the point in showing up and kind of being a practice and not?
I guess the only thing I would say before we get to the break is that we just don't know. We don't know in terms of, it seems imminent that this contract is going to get done, but I've never seen anything like this. Like just when you think, and we've been here before at the threshold, that this thing has taken so many turns and there's been so many peaks and valleys and ebb and flow that who knows what that proverbial other shoe, when it does drop, where that's going to go with this. At this point, I can clearly tell you that, yeah, typically I would say if it was any other player, any other negotiation, this is going to be done by Monday. Right now, who the hell knows? So in defense of Brandon Aiyuk, I guess to a certain point, he's got to do what it is that he feels he's got to do, because you cannot count on anything in terms of something getting done between the two sides.
That's fair. And I do, there's one more thought I have, but I'll get to it on the other side. There's also something that Shanahan said specifically about Trent Williams. Debo talking about Brandon Aiyuk on the Up and Adams show with Kay Adams on FanDuel TV that I want to play for you guys as we continue to figure out just where the 49ers are at as they begin their second week of the preseason, second game of the preseason, I should say. Tomorrow, 5 o'clock kickoff between the Niners and the Saints. We'll also have overtime coverage right here on 95.7 The Game as we roll on here on a Saturday. Evan Giddings, Dan Devone, back with you after this.
Every business faces challenges, but complicated, expensive, and uncertain shipping shouldn't be one of them.
With USPS Ground Advantage from the United States Postal Service, you can...
Brandon Aiyuk's won. He's won. It sounds like he's going to get what he wants, which is a whole lot of money and then some. He's going to be a San Francisco 49er, and he's going to be a major part of an offense that last year was one of, if not the best, most efficient in football, with Brock Purdy at the helm alongside Debo and Kittle and McCaffrey and all the rest. He's going to get what he wants. He is going to get what he wants. But it sounds like in the process of doing so, he is frustrating his head coach. And that is something that I don't like. It ain't about us. It's about the team. And if Kyle Shanahan sounds like he's frustrated with Brandon Aiyuk, then that is something that I have to pay attention to.
Well, first of all, when you say he's won, we got to see the numbers on the contract.
I believe he will, when it comes out, win. I could be wrong.
No, you could be right, but I think that, to be honest with you, these contracts are beyond my bandwidth. Like, they'll come out with a number, but that APY, as you and I have discussed, means nothing. It's all about cap hits. It's about deferred money. It's about the guaranteed money and how it stacks up against Tyreek Hill or Justin Jefferson. Only the agents, Prague Marate, and people that really get into the weeds with this sort of stuff are going to know who won or who lost in terms of his asking price. The numbers that we see, we can banter about. A lot of it is just for vanity, I think. The APY, $30 million a year. I'm in the top 5, or I'm making as much as Amon-Ra St. Brown or whomever. But really, when it gets down to the nitty-gritty in terms of who won or lost, as far as dollars and cents, I think you need like a degree in this sort of thing to understand just how much money one side gave up and the other made. But, I mean, when you think about it, after all the craziness, we're right back where we started. It's two teams that are sitting at a table hammering out a deal. This could have happened back in March or in April. So despite all the trade and trade rumors, we're really right back to square one.
Especially because, you're right, it's also, this has been a 6-month thing. 2 days after the Super Bowl, Aiyuk's girlfriend posted on social media that this might be the last time that they're going to Levi's Stadium. I cannot imagine that the Niners did not foresee a contract negotiation that needed to happen with that. This has taken 6 months. And I also think it's taken 6 months for someone like Kyle Shanahan to get to the point where he finally is becoming a bit frustrated with Brandon Aiyuk. And it's not that he hasn't signed, and it's not that he's, not going to be a part of the team, but it's that because, and I've been reluctant to use this word because I have been very pro Brandon Aiyuk over this summer, doing whatever he needs to do to get his money. I'm at the point, Dan, where I do believe he will get the money that he wants. And the final year is the only thing that needs to be ironed out. The last bit of guaranteed money, whatever that is. I think Brandon Aiyuk is going to win. So at the point where you've won, using all these leverage tactics, it becomes a moot point. What you are right now, what Brandon Aiyuk has become, is a distraction. And a distraction is not something, in my opinion, that this 49ers team that is top dog in the NFC, that wants to be back where they were last year with his, an arm's reach away from a Super Bowl, a distraction is what you cannot afford to have. And I do think Brandon Aiyuk is dangerously close to approaching that territory.
So just getting back to the contract, and again, I defer to the people, the nerds that do this for a living, well beyond what it is of my understanding and all of this sort of stuff. The last year of the contract, because I used Tyreek Hill as an example, they often refer to that as funny money. They very rarely, if ever, guarantee that last year. But Tyreek Hill, he negotiated $43 million for the last year of his deal with the Miami Dolphins, which most likely they'll never pay. But the reason he factored in that $43 million is that when you averaged out the total sum, it came out to the 30 per. So again, it's for vanity reasons that last year is put in there so that the average salary over the span of the contract puts you at a number that is competitive, say, with the top wide receivers in football. It's not only done for your vanity's sake, But also agents, right? Like agents want to say, I got my guy signed for X amount of dollars. Like the APY, whether it's accurate or not, means a lot to the player in terms of their ego, and it means a lot to the agent. So the agent can walk around and saying, when trying to recruit new talent, why don't you come to our stable? Look what it is that I got Brandon Aiyuk. How much did he make? $30 million. He's right up there with the top wide receivers in all of football. So on those levels, when you talk about the back end of the last year, the contract, as far as I understand it, that money isn't guaranteed. Oftentimes that funny money is thrown in there to sort of boost the APY. Just to get back to Brandon Aiyuk, and I think that this is where this all started with in defending the 49ers. To your point, when it came to Nick Bosa, I think that's one of the few times, because I think the 49ers are very shrewd when they put on their business hats. But they blinked against Bosa. Bosa won that deal. Bosa got over on the 49ers. That doesn't happen. It went way too long. I mean, it encroached into the regular season. So on the heels of that, and the fact that you've got Brock Purdy, as we all know, is looming, that's where we're at with Brandon Aiyuk. I think it's not personal with Brandon Aiyuk because a lot of people have said, well, listen, you paid the others. Why aren't you paying me? It's just circumstantial, Ev. It's like you just so happen to be. Yes, we have taken care of our players going back to Fred Warner and George Kittle and Deebo Samuel and Nick Bosa. It just happens to be circumstantial that you got wedged in between after us losing to Nick Bosa and what it is that we're going to have to pay Brock Purdy.
Yeah, I mean, the Purdy contract looms over everything. I also want to bring Carter into this discussion because you've been at training camp pretty much every day this week. You've seen the sort of progression of the publicity that Aiyuk has been putting forth, right? I mean, you said that one day he wasn't in Niners gear, the next day he was. How have you seen what Brandon Aiyuk's publicly done this week?
It's been really interesting. He, for kind of most of the week, he just stands there on the sideline and watches drills, and he keeps a very unreadable face on. And on top of that, he wears generic NFL clothing, which is really interesting. But Friday, that kind of really changed.
Why is that?
In the fact that he was wearing red. I don't know if it was 49er logoed red.
That was Thursday.
And he was running agility drills in the corner with Ricky Pearsall, which we have not seen him do. At least he has not shown the media really on the field, him doing anything active. So it was kind of, pretty surprising at least.
Yeah, so, it feels like he's doing that on purpose. And it could be a demonstration of how close they are to a contract. Like the fact that I am going to be out there working means that we're 98% of the way there. But I don't know about you, Dan. And it might just be me, but dude, if you're on the practice field, you got to practice. If you're hurt, you're hurt. You stay on the sideline and you do your rehab and you work in the background. If you're on the practice field, I need you to practice. Mm-hmm. If you're going to be around the team and you're joshing with wide receivers, it's like the kid in class who everyone knows is super smart, can just run up and get an A on the specific test, but is in class just distracting all the rest of the kids that are there to try and work because they actually do need to put the work in. Brandon Aiyuk, I believe he's in shape. I believe the moment that week one starts, that if he's on the field, he's going to be playing at an all-pro level like he did last year. And Brock Purdy's going to get him the ball, and he's got a great chance to rack up numbers and help the Niners win games. I believe all of that. Okay, so everyone else also needs to quit being the guy that is basically distracting your teammates. I think that Brandon Aiyuk is approaching distraction territory because he is not making the decision, or is intentionally making the choice to be out there on the field when either he shouldn't be because he's reportedly hurt or because, I'm not really going to go 100%.
And that's why this thing has to end, because that's not sustainable. And again, if this is going to have a cancerous effect on the rest of that locker room and team, it has to come to an end today. I harken back and make the basketball analogies. Remember Anthony Davis in his final years in New Orleans when it was a foregone conclusion he wanted out, and he would do the same thing, wasn't playing with the Pelicans because he wanted to go to L.A., wanted to play with LeBron, and he'd feign these silly injuries. James Harden sitting on a bench, And the team, it's not as though you can't see that the 7'1" best player on our team is not playing, yet he's in uniform. It disrupted everything to the point where Anthony Davis got his wish because ownership and management and coaches are like, he's got to go. This has to stop. I can't coach the rest of the team because of this one player. Now, we're not at that level with Brandon Aiyuk, but there's precedence here. Carter, a couple of things I wanted to ask you. So I'm hearing a lot about Brock Purdy is apparently yoked and ripped. Can you see any physical differences with him? And as well as Brandon Aiyuk.
I will say this. I haven't really seen that big of a physical difference. I think that's a little blown over, if you want my opinion. They ran an amazing trick play.
Oh, yes, with Debo.
In which it was a double reverse, basically. Debo got the ball, and he threw it to Purdy on a go route. And Brock caught it. He even made a move on the defender, got past him, and he blew it.
It's Diamador Lenore he beat, I believe.
50 yards.
Yeah.
Didn't they have a name for the play, too? I think it was called
Dog?
Per Dog. Yeah, he said that at the podium. I thought that was pretty cool.
So let me just ask you this. When we had a trick play at St. Ignatius.
When you were running the wing tee?
In leather helmets. When we had a trick play, simply because we would play Reardon, Sacred Heart City schools.
Stuart Hall?
We're relatively close, no.
Okay.
Is Stuart Hall a football team?
We do, actually, yes.
Okay. But when we had a trick play, we would go into the gymnasium because Reardon would have their spies, would have people walking around to their parents. Well, you'd have people, it's a city thing. Like, SI, you should have seen what they did. It's like, everybody sort of hangs out somewhere. Like whether it's the Circle or the Boathouse is where we used to drink back in the day.
Oh, we got the Patriots Spygate going on in San Francisco?
Well, if you're the 49ers and you're at this early in the season and it's practice, why the hell is Brock Purdy talking about it? Like, why is this of public consumption? Like, I shouldn't have known about this. Like, I'll tell you, if it's a trick play, like, there shouldn't be any video on it. We shouldn't be discussing it. Some things can be clandestine. Like, some things can be under wraps. Get into that gymnasium like us and St. Ignatius and then, pull it out for that fake two-pointer as we pulled against the Crusaders of Reardon in that particular football game.
Well, I feel like every team's got the Philly special, right? That certain package, I don't know, the Per Dog package, whatever it is. But no one knows when you're going to use it. It's not like they're sitting there on a 4th down, a 4th and 1, and they're like, all right, guys, watch out for Per Dog. No, they're watch out for halfback dive, McCaffrey up the middle, right behind or to the left side behind Trent Williams, assuming he's on the field week 1. No, I mean, I didn't mind it. I thought it was actually really cool.
Did you see it?
Well, Carter just described it to us.
Yeah, no, I'm wondering if there's video of it.
Probably someone's got it out there on their phone somewhere. But the fact that they did it publicly, I also think it's like, yeah, you got to try you got to try those things. I don't know if you're going to do it, I don't know, behind closed doors, but
I'm not a big fan of trick plays. I'll just tell you that. I like a team line up, hit them in the face, beat them, going A-gap down the field, let the other team take their soul, be a better team than them, throw a pass, complete it, run it over, and get to the second level. Trickery is just like...
You got to have that stuff in the play. But I mean, in the Super Bowl, Juwan Jennings threw a touchdown to Christian McCaffrey.
I wouldn't call that... Is that necessarily trickery? I guess halfback options or, yeah.
I mean, it was a lateral, and Jennings barely got that ball off.
Do you remember the fumble Ruski? Like that wasn't even football.
I mean, in the longest yard that works. But
I mean, that wasn't even. We weren't even playing football anymore.
Georgia Tech versus Shadron State. Yeah, I could see it. By the way, week 0 is coming up in college football. But let's get out to the phone lines. 888-957-9570 is the number. Is Aiyuk approaching the distraction territory for you? How the Niners handled this? I mean, to me, I think this thing is coming to a head. It's going to come to a close very soon. I'm not worried about the money. What I am worried about is hearing Kyle Shanahan, I don't know, is seemingly frustrated with the amount of questions that he's got to answer, whether or not Aiyuk is all in, halfway out. What are you hearing about it? Also, there's a couple of other teams that I want to look at in a moment that have also dealt with some hold-ins or holdouts in specific ways. The Niners could have played it. I'm not sure. But let's go down to San Jose, talk to one of our favorites. Austin, you're on with Evan and Dan. What's up, my man?
Hey, happy Saturday, guys. Listen, I kind of think I'm a non-Niner fan, so I can be a little bit objective. I think that I think that Aiyuk has misplayed it. I think he showed some immaturity and even showing up. I agree he shouldn't be there probably. I think he's getting some bad advice. I think he should change agents after this go around. But the other part of it, though, the balance of it is I'm not sure that I agree that the 49ers have handled this very well. I don't understand why they haven't already traded him, to be honest with you. I mean, he's not the first time a great player, and I wouldn't even call him a great receiver at this point. I call him a good receiver.
Yeah.
But the guys better than him have been traded, so I don't know why everybody thinks that Aiyuk can't be traded. He certainly can be traded. Maybe should have been by now. They probably could have got value for him, and then they wouldn't have distraction. If they're such a great franchise that everybody keeps saying they are, and Kyle's this genius that can make anybody work, then why are they worried about Aiyuk? Get somebody else. I mean, I don't. So to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense, and I think they're setting a bad precedent. I think one of the reasons why they don't want to pay him what he wants is because if they pay him what he wants, guys, every time somebody else gets paid more, he's going to come in for a reset. He's already kind of said he's going to be that kind of player. So I don't know why everybody would think he's going to change. He's going to want to increase every other year. Then the other thing about Purdy, I don't understand why everybody doesn't seem to have a problem with Purdy getting paid. In fact, Purdy's, according to you guys, is already going to get $60 million next year. I want to ask Evan right now, and I'm going to challenge you.
Oh boy.
First of all, I don't believe he's going to get anywhere near $60 million. And I think he's going to come in somewhere around 30 to 35 max. No one else, and the reason why they don't have to pay him, no one else in the NFL is going to pay him that kind of money. They'll compete with himself. So why would they pay Brock Purdy $60 million? Give me 2 or 3 teams that'll give Brock Purdy that kind of money. I'm waiting, guys. I'll listen. Thanks.
No, Austin, hold on. I guess he dropped. But I was going to ask Austin if he thought that Dak Prescott was a $60 million quarterback, because he's going to be, I think he is going to be a free agent next year. I mean, we talked about Jerry Jones not knowing what the hell he's doing in Dallas. And I think a result of that is Dak Prescott either re-signing with the Dallas Cowboys or going elsewhere. And I think once he becomes a $60 million per year quarterback, I don't know what the guaranteed money is going to be, but to me that does make Brock Purdy a $60 million quarterback. So that would be my response, Austin. I appreciate you calling in. Always enjoyed the conversation. And he said something that I want to get to in a moment, but I mean, do you think Dak Prescott is a $60 million quarterback, Dan? In this market?
In this market, yeah. Because that's the going rate.
Then in my mind, that makes Brock Purdy a $60 million quarterback.
He is. But I think to Austin's point, it sort of gets back to, look at it. If Patrick Mahomes is up, then he's getting market value and more so. Same holds true for Amon-Ra St. Brown, or, we'll keep it to quarterbacks. Jared Goff. But this sort of has a tinge, if I'm to read Austin correctly, of there's still a strong belief that Brock Purdy can't do this anywhere else aside from San Francisco.
Yeah.
So he might be worth $60 million to San Francisco, but if he goes out on the free market and I need a quarterback, am I paying him upwards to $60 to $65 million?
What about Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the other part. And to answer Austin's question about what other teams would pay him, I'm not sure if there are 2 or 3, but I do know that, like, let's say Dak Prescott re-signs with Dallas, whether it's, I don't know, this offseason or next offseason. And, well, Brock Purdy wouldn't be a free agent after this season, but I believe after next year, let's say the Niners don't pay him. I do think that the New York Giants would overpay for Brock Purdy. I do think that a team like in a couple of years, like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, would overpay for Brock Purdy.
The Raiders?
The Las Vegas Raiders might overpay for Brock. They're probably going to try to make a run at Dak Prescott.
When you say overpay, you're saying $60 million.
Yeah. I agree with Austin. Okay. $60 million is a lot of money.
Hey, I've heard talk that number could be a 7 by the time next year rolls around if he plays well.
I mean, if he puts together another top 5 MVP season, which I believe he was top 5 last year, I don't know how he isn't. And look, he might regress and the numbers might not look as good. I'm stacking his resume against other quarterbacks that have been paid in that stratosphere. And I don't think Trevor Lawrence is a $50 million. There are 8 quarterbacks right now that make $50+ million per year.
And Tua is one of them. I have a hard time.
I don't think Tua is worth 53 per year. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is worth 50+ per year. I don't think Jared Goff is worth 50+ per year. But again, all of these guys have made that money. Do I think that Brock Purdy is worth $60 million? No, I don't. But that doesn't mean that he can't get paid that.
It brings a larger sort of question to all of this. And I think I brought this up earlier. Do you think that we've gotten to the point where spending money on quarterbacks has gotten out of control?
I do think there will eventually be a market correction.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that's coming sooner to wide receivers, to be honest, because as we've seen, there are a lot of really good young wideouts, and they seemingly come out every single year.
Puka Nacua.
Well, Puka Nacua is a 4th or 5th round pick. I'm just talking about the guys at the top of the draft.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just talking about the guys at the top of the draft. There were 3 wide receivers taken in the top 15 this year. And one of them is probably going to be a game breaker, and Harrison's kid. Adunze is going to get a lot of looks in Chicago with Caleb Williams. I think Malik Neighbors doesn't have a great quarterback, but it doesn't mean he can't be good on the Giants. Like, there are wideouts that are...
Daniel Jones hate?
Come on, man. All right, for everybody who doesn't know, Devone does have a bit of a soft spot for Danny Dimes.
Stop!
And I think if the Giants could, for example, pay Brock Purdy this year $60 million instead of paying Daniel Jones $45 million or whatever money he's making, I think they would do it.
Are you watching Hard Knocks?
I watched the off-season one with the Giants. I haven't dialed up the Chicago Bears one yet.
Yeah, well, the New York Giants one, that's one of those where you're revealing a little too much, fellas. Like, I get it. It's a reality show, but let's pull back a little bit here. Put some guys under the bus.
I always wonder where your allegiance lies. Your allegiance.
In terms of football?
Shout out Allegiant Stadium. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sort of... I mean, I enjoy the 49ers.
King of the coast. Juggle them both.
Yeah, I mean... I would like to see San Francisco. You know what I pull for? I always tell you this. And Carter, you could attest to this as well.
Atlanta Falcons.
As you get closer to, as a sportscaster, as somebody that gets intimate with some of the players, you begin to pull for good people.
Whoop.
No, I'm serious. You know these guys, and you begin
to... Do you know
to
Daniel Jones personally?
No.
Oh. No, I'd believe it.
But I just think you begin to pull for coaches and teams and players that you like, that you just feel are good people. And you're just like, I want to see them win.
When you think about likable athletes in the NFL, who do you think? I think Brock Purdy's a likable athlete.
Yeah, I think George Kittle's at the top of that list. I think Debo has a really strong, likable quality, the big smile.
I do love Debo.
Yeah. Are we talking about 49ers or are we talking about across the board?
I think for the Niners, that would kind of round on my time. Like, Nick Bosa's not necessarily... He's a likable player.
Yeah.
But as a person...
he has no personality.
No, it doesn't really do it for me. Brandon Aiyuk is an interesting one. Trent Williams is an interesting one. I think the Niners are generally affable. I think they're an affable team.
I have a hard time, I think I told you this, pulling for the Jets because of Aaron Rodgers, and I know he's divisive. I just can't get down with some of his, conspiracy theories, and I know it shouldn't shape my thinking, but it does. And their owner, Woody Johnson. I mean, sorry, bro. Not down with any of that conservatism, but go ahead.
Well, but I also... I don't think we have enough time to go down political party donations for owners.
Thank you.
But...
Don't talk about that.
Yeah, thank God we got to hit a break in a minute here. No, I think Brandon Aiyuk was a guy that I haven't done like a 180 on. I'm not the guy that's going to completely...
He's pretty introverted, though, isn't he? So it's hard to know.
Well, but I like introverted players. Like a reason why I really enjoy someone like Justin Herbert is because he is a very introverted quarterback. He's not a rah-rah guy, and he kind of makes fun of the fact that he hates doing media. It's one of the reasons why I really like Klay Thompson early in his career, because he was totally himself. When he got to the podium, he's very genuine. But he was also upfront about, dude, I don't like talking to reporters. I just don't.
Well, along those lines is why I put Steph Curry, to me, as the greatest athlete of all time. Right up there with sort of Muhammad Ali, and I can explain on the other side.
Now, that's a take.
Yeah, right?
That's a take. Also, there is something that our last caller, Austin, said about Brandon Aiyuk that I wholeheartedly agree with, that I want to dig into more as it relates to where he stands with the 49ers, and specifically where the 49ers stand with him. because there is something that I just want to drive home on the other side as we move into our final hour here on Saturdays on 95.7 The Game that pertains to this season. Again, preseason game number 2, tomorrow, 5 o'clock, 49ers Saints, Fox Sports, can catch it on KPIX, but also with the goal of winning the Super Bowl. That's what's coming up next. Evan Giddings, Dan Devone, 95.7 The Game.
So what are you reading?
I'm checking out the ratings on the new TVs, and it looks like Samsung, LG, and Sony got the best scores.
Just like last year. What about those new high dynamic?
They're poignant, and they are direct. Why are airplanes so damn cold?
I don't know, man. It's just freezing. Like, you leave the heat and humidity of New York, and so you're in a T-shirt because you're sweltering, and then you get on that flight.
Yeah, you're sweating right now.
Oh, my God, man. It's like, come on. I need a parka. I don't know if it's just, it has something to do with, the air ventilation. That's the other thing. You're breathing everybody else's air and those things. I still mask up, man. I don't trust anybody. Bro, I don't know. I'm freezing. I'm freezing in those flights.
You trust me?
You, come on, man. You're my right-hand man.
Well, that's why I'm glad. So hold my hand through this one. And look, I'm going to get to my Brandon Aiyuk tease in a moment. There's also
should we check in on the career?
What
Because I was telling somebody the other day, I want to be the guy's agent. Because once again, if you're not familiar with Evan Giddings,
I'm a free agent, Dano.
Headed to the top. So we're all going to be playing the game. I remember when. Evan, it's going to be like,
I turned 30 tomorrow.
You ever go to a baseball, like there's fans, like you get to a baseball game like a half an hour, 45 minutes before, and players are hitting batting practice.
Yeah.
And then you've got those fans that are leaning over from the front row and they're screaming to the players as they walk back and forth or sort of mill around.
Sure.
And oftentimes there are people like myself that are going to be saying, "Hey, Chapman, you remember me? We used to have, fourth period together back in Monte Vista High School. Chap, look over here. We went,
like, oh, Devone, what's going on, man? Dude, I used to cheat off you all the time."
Yeah, well, that's gonna be all of us when we go, Ev, when you're going in and out of your private limo straight into the Garden in New York. Ev, we used to do a show Saturday morning, San Francisco. Remember back in the day? And you may just turn and give me a head nod. No, make my day.
I do find it funny because the way you belittle your own stature just always makes me cackle. For example, I was running this by Carter before the show. So one thing that kind of peeved us, and to divert off the 49ers for a moment, we'll get right back to it. We got Trent, we got BA, we got Lynch Sound coming your way. But there was something that I found hilarious over the weekend, which is Draymond Green and LeBron James partying in... Let me guess. All right, I'm assuming you know how to pronounce this city. Is it Cons?
Yeah.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
Have you been there?
Yeah, the film festival.
That's $5. I bet Carter that you
it's
would.
Awesome, man.
Of course it is. Of course.
Yeah.
You are Mr. International.
No. It's I went just 1 year, so have you ever seen Entourage? It's like where you unveil sort of these.
Well, it's Cannes Film Festival I'm familiar with.
Yeah. So it's basically, it's just a big party, essentially. I went 1 year, and it was right after we had watched an Entourage special. Me and a buddy at the time in Seattle decided that we got to go do this. But Entourage, that episode, does Entourage predate you guys? Carter, you don't remember Entourage?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it dictated my life there for a while. And so basically there was
I can
this one
picture
episode,
you walking in one.
Me and a guy by the name of Scott Angler said it's on our bucket list of things that we got to do. So I strongly recommend it. But anyways,
Dan and Scotty.
Now, my man, I think that, your career is just, I'm telling everybody out there just to keep an eye on it because, you've got to struggle with whether or not you want to do this or play by play. But I think you got to go, play by play full tilt.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to. And I'll be doing, you can get the drop ready. We're going to be doing, 20 events this year in the fall for Santa Clara. Some West Coast Conference soccer, volleyball, water polo, basically whatever they ask me.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
When the Oakland A's go to Las Vegas officially, I think that you're in. I really do. I want to tell you right now. You know who you need to contact? Larry Bear, if you happen to be listening. Because Larry Bear did A's games when he was at the University of California.
Really?
He was in college.
Berkeley?
He was in college at Cal. And
he was part of the student station?
He did games. It was called KALX.
Yeah. It's still around.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
And he did Oakland A's play-by-play at age 21, 22.
Really?
Oh, yeah. So Larry Bear, while he's connected obviously with the San Francisco Giants, he's the one guy that I think is with San Francisco that has his tentacles all around Major League Baseball. And is the one guy I would say that you need to sort of like get a hold of.
Well, I'll give him a ring. How about that?
But when the A's go, so my point being is that stranger things have happened. Whether they want to go young, they want a new face, and sometimes, guys just simply don't want to make the trip, or where you go to a new city and they want a clean house. I'm telling you, I think you're in 2 years. It's Las Vegas, baby. Welcome to the Las Vegas A's. It's 110 today as we play a double dip out in.
Dude, that place is gonna be incredibly difficult to get fans to get packed. I don't think it has a roof. Number one, it's gonna be 110.
What?
You're right, every single day. Yeah, just God. If I can digress for a moment,
there's no roof.
The architectural idiocy of that place is going to blow whatever the next dumbest built building is out of the water. Like, there's a reason why the Texas Rangers moved off their Arlington Park in less than 15 years, and it was still a very nice place, is because you can't play baseball in the middle of the summer in a freaking sauna.
It's unacceptable.
Yeah, in the desert. It doesn't work. So trying to get, I understand the Raiders model, and they're cash cows. They pull in money hand over fist right now.
That's a nice stadium.
Allegiant's beautiful, but it also, you only have to pack it, 8-9 times a year?
Yeah.
They're selling events and they'll do concerts and things around. And I'm sure the A's will eventually do that too in Las Vegas. But number one, if they can even get the place built, I also believe that there might be a purgatory effect in them just getting stuck in Sacramento for quite some time. It's going to be retractable. Yeah. I still don't see how the temperature is going to hold up. That's just me. Arizona does it right. Like, every single place has a dome that needs to have one, or a roof. And even if there is a way to minimize the heat, trying to book 81 dates over the course of a summer is just a task that I don't think people in the city of Las Vegas have really thought about, because baseball is not a big tourist attraction.
Yeah.
Like, it's not. It's a local sport, or has become a local sport. And you need a firm fan base to fill the ballpark. And I don't see how they're going to do it.
That's always been the big question with Las Vegas. And so I don't know that the Raiders necessarily answer that, because when you think about having a professional team in Las Vegas and drawing from their fan base, well, who is that? Because it's such a transient city, right? Like, who are the fans? Everybody's just coming and going. And I don't know.
Chain smokers? I don't know.
The Raiders are just, again, because it's only 8 or 9 games a year and it's sort of a destination, you can get away with it. But when you get an NBA or you get a Major League Baseball team, it'll be interesting to see just exactly who those natives are. And are there enough of them to support a professional team? Because the majority of Las Vegas people are in and out, right? Or there for maybe a couple of months.
Well, the entire point of an expansion team is that there's a fan base that's ready to lift the attendance. I mean, that's one of the reasons why the A's purportedly are leaving, is because they don't feel like there's enough fans that can attend games, and then the numbers show it. But I just don't see how you're going to go from a number that they are currently at to a number that is acceptable by major league standards to get you back to, I don't know. I don't see it. I just don't see it. But again, the A's and the Giants will play regardless tonight in Oakland. I think there's going to be a nice crowd tonight. I'll be there. Carter will be there. I know you're flying out, Dan, but I would love to get you out to the Collie one last time.
Let's go, man. Bring out the pigskin. Get a couple of bangers on the grill. Get a little pony cake going.
A pony cake.
Do it proper, as they like to say. I will be
today
that guy.
I'll bury a keg somewhere in the parking lot, and that way when we show up in September, it'll be waiting for us. How about that?
I will be that guy that will have a football in the back seat of my rig until I'm 75. Like, I will never, I don't care how, this is a true story. So I was racing to a game at Safeco Field back in the day, and it was a play. I was so late, right? And I had to do a hit, like I was doing something pregame, and this is on television. And I was so late, but I saw these kids playing catch with a football. I still had to stop and say, "Hey, get me one," and just catch it. Like, I will never be able to pass up anybody at a beach, whatever the random spot might be, where somebody is playing catch with a football. I maybe get this from my dad. I have got to at least catch one, and then, bro, go long. Just give me an out. Give me a little slant. Let me put it on you.
Yeah, whether it's regulation size pigskin, a Nerf ball, shoot, I mean,
Nerfs used to be the thing back then.
I feel like you'd catch a baseball barehanded if someone would let you run a fly route.
Kevin Mitchell back in the day.
Dude, that's true. Was it for the Giants or the Astros?
No, MVP season. He caught one against the Reds.
The Reds?
Foul territory.
Barehanded?
Barehanded, yeah.
Pretty impressive. Might be seeing that later on today if I catch a foul ball. Can we get something in the third deck today, please? Please.
You're going to sit upstairs? What is that going to cost you? 75 cents?
$75.
Really?
Swear to God, man.
For A's tickets?
Dude, they are extorting me today.
Wow.
And I will, I hate to admit it, but I will gladly give them my money. Oh, man, I love that
Carter,
place.
how'd you get caught up in all of this?
He's an A's fan.
I might be an A's fan now. I don't know.
Jeez. All right.
As of 2 months ago. Dude, I'm telling you, the bandwagon, we got room.
All right. Hey, listen, it's happened before.
Baptism by fire.
When I was a kid. If I can get out there and have some good little pregame and some tailgate and then be able to see the guy. I'm not dropping a couple of bills, like 200 bills to get a beer and park the rig and watch that crappy team play.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the Cannes Film Festival, but, you know, it's a pretty nice place to watch, you know, some opposing talent.
All right.
The Yankees are coming to town. You can go see Judge, Soto, Giancarlo, your boy Volpe.
Oh, do we want to even go there?
Ant-Man. Yeah, I don't know if we have enough time for
Do you want
Volpe.
to talk Soto rumors?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Speaking of which.
Again, I promise we will get back to the Niners. I will pay off the tease about Brandon Aiyuk, and I will make Dan defend his statement that Steph Curry's in the same stratosphere as Muhammad Ali. But before we do that, during the break, this all happens during the break. This is where we get our show material. I was reading on the internet that there's an anonymous MLB insider. I don't know who it is. My guess would be Bob Nightingale or John Heyman or one of the rest, who thinks that the Giants, God, just get the carousel music out, are going to be in on acquiring the services of one Juan Soto this summer, who will be a free agent. What's the first thing that you think of when you hear that? Because I feel like that title or that headline has been written 18 different times with just a different big name free agent.
Just put that on Farhan's headstone. Like that's the title.
Giants are in on X.
Reminds me of Aaron Judge, quite frankly.
Judge, Ohtani, Harper, Stanton. Who else has been available the last couple of years? They're also going to be in on Alonso, I think, this summer.
But again, I don't think Soto would play well here. It's not. I've told you my outfield of the future. It's my corner outfielders are Matos, Elliot Ramos. Elliot Ramos is not very good defensively in center field, but this kid McRae is.
You've seen one game and you're already willing to hand him the reins.
McRae in center field. Well, I'm done with Yastrzemski. I'm done with Flores. I'm done with Conforto. I'm done with these middling major leaguers. You're giving me nothing. So let me go young. And Luciano, that's a crime, man.
I mean, just put him at shortstop.
Who?
At that point, Luciano.
No, I got Fitzgerald.
That's right, the shortstop of the
A-Rod.
future. Yeah, I mean, he's basically a modern-day Cal Ripken.
And I'm good at second base. I like the Wisely platoon with our man, second baseman for the Giants.
Wisely?
No, Wisely's...
Schmidt?
No.
Luciano?
Estrada.
Oh, yeah, Tyro. He's working his way back from injury. Rehab assignment.
I'm good with Chapman. And
you got to convince him to stay first.
My team for all those. That's the other thing.
Lamont at first. Oh, that's a 90-win team. That's a 90-win team.
He's sort of
Montos, McRae, Fitzy.
Kind of reminds me of the Warriors starting five this season. Not a lot to get excited about either one of those things.
Oh, what are you talking about, Dan? Their models project they're going to be better. There was actually a report that one rival executive and their analytic model had the Warriors as the fourth best team in the Western Conference.
You know what scares me?
How about that?
About
You better
Steph
be careful.
Is that, I mean, last year he played, I want to say 74 games, which was the most he's played since 2016 or something.
Did you have coffee with him when you were in Paris?
No, man. I don't know Steph at all. I've never had a conversation with him. You've talked to him more than I have.
I don't know about that.
But Steph, I hate saying this.
Oh, boy.
but he ain't playing 74 games again. And as much basketball as he just played, the tread on those tires are already wearing thin. There's a good chance that he's missing substantial time next year. So my only question
he's playing all 82
to Warrior fans is forget about him getting hurt for a month, which you can pretty much hang your hat on, which inadvertently has worked out in a weird way for the Warriors because he's had fresh legs come the postseason. But when Steph comes out of a game or he's hurt, who scores the basketball for those Golden State Warriors?
Our guy.
Kuminga?
Yeah, 0-0. Him?
All right, can Kuminga and Steph sit on the bench at the same time?
Did you hear Podziemski? He's been working on his game. How about this?
I didn't have this feeling of getting better as much as I did this year, or this offseason, I should say, since my junior to senior year of high school.
20 points a game.
During that time, I really noticed a jump in my game. I could feel it. I could see it. And I haven't really felt that since until this offseason.
Wow.
And I think people would ask me about the Illinois to Santa Clara. I think that was more so an opportunity than anything. But from a skill development standpoint, I feel like this offseason has been, up there with the one my junior to senior of high school. So for me, I'm feeling really good. Took out the floaters, took out the hook shots, kind of putting in more mid-range stuff, more threes off the dribble, more threes off the catch. So just adding different things, and then defensively being able to, take on that challenge, being out there with Steph every night, taking that challenge head on.
No hooks. You can book it.
You know, a lot of pressure on that kid.
Yeah, I know.
If he's really the reason why they wouldn't move off on him to get Paul George and/or Lauri Markkanen, well, brother, you better show us why. You know what I mean? If you're the reason why we didn't get those two players because we coveted you, well, what is it that you got that's so special?
Yeah, no, this isn't a referendum of Brandon Podziemski, but I do think that the Warriors, by not including him and all of that information leaking out, I think they've kind of put him in an unfair spot, to be honest. Like, I think Podziemski's a good player, and he showed a lot as a rookie, but I think he's going to be expected to be the starting shooting guard, and that's a lot of pressure when the shoes you're filling are a future Hall of Famers. I know Klay Thompson wasn't great last year, or maybe the past 2 years, depending on how you view him, but you're still whoever is going to be the two is being asked to fill in for Klay Thompson.
I think that thing should be wide open. It should be just like a summer tryout, because maybe
this ain't varsity, Dan.
Maybe you pencil him in, but it's not in bold type. I'll put Podziemski as the number 2. But I would say Moody, even you, Wiggins, because you're really small at the guard spot if you get those two, Steph and Podziemski, aren't you? Moody, I would say, hey, my man, Podziemski might have you by a nose going into this thing, but you got to punch his chance. What do you got?
Well, speaking of, I don't even know if this is a word, overzealousness, you called Steph Curry Muhammad Ali.
So my checklist for greatest athletes.
Care to expand?
Would you put him in the top 10 in the NBA?
Curry?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Of all time?
Of all time, yeah.
There's a lot of people that are like, when you go through it, they're like, oh, really, I'm going to move.
I mean, I don't think he's like a top 3 player ever, top maybe even 5, but he probably cracks my top 10.
So if you're in the top 10 of your respective sport all time, the reason why I put him in that pantheon of the greatest athletes of ever is because, for me, my checklist is that.
Actually, I think that's Ali's agent. He's calling to tell you to back the hell off this statement.
So
you better be careful.
That's the better half calling me from New York City. See, man, this is what happens.
Is she listening?
No, maybe.
What's up, C?
Good job.
Oh, come on, man.
So here's the thing. Wow, a CC shout out. Good job, F. She's going to love that. So listen, for me, my checklist of what it is that entail to become the greatest athletes of all time, it's that you be in the top 10 in your respective sport. And for me, what you do off the court, ambassador, goodwill. We were talking about good guys, right? I mean, we had this discussion, who are good guys on the 49ers, which I think led me to all of this.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's ever been a better guy as far as doing it the right way and not being disingenuous about it than that of Steph Curry to ever play sports in my lifetime. Huge statement, yeah, but I stand by it. I think that because of what it is, how special he is off the court on everything that he does, not only for the Warriors, but I think for basketball in general, and just being that, that special person puts him in sort of that rarefied air.
Well, if you're talking about most likable athletes ever, I do think Curry's got a case to be number one. I can't think of anything about the guy that I dislike, to be honest. But if you are also relitigating history, the reason why him and Ali to me are incomparable is because during his heyday, Ali was not liked. He was branded a draft dodger. People felt like he was un-American. I think that's why his impact is far greater and superior to that of a Curry. Or honestly, frankly, any modern day athlete. I don't want to just single out Curry. There's very few people that today I think have an opportunity, specifically in America, to do the kinds of things that Ali did. As far as greatness, 100% with you. I think Curry is up there as one of the greatest basketball players ever. I know that if you really want to go down the list, Ali and his record, as a boxer, you could probably slot him somewhere in the top 10, maybe top 5. But pound for pound, there are other people that you could make a case for. But in terms of impact, and this is where I do think that, the greatest American athletes ever, I would leave Curry out of that. That's where Ali stands alone.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't put him
likability, Curry's, you can make a case Curry's more likable than Ali was.
Yeah, Ali is the transcendent figure. I don't put him on the same level as Muhammad. There'll never be another Muhammad Ali, which brings me once again to another Evan Giddings moment. Bro, you are such an old soul. First of all, how you dug out Monty Moore and just in seamless transition talk about the virtues of Muhammad Ali and knowing and I know, listen, I wasn't alive when, Lincoln got shot, but I can tell you about it. So I know we can look these things up. But
John Wilkes Booth.
For you to have the reverence for a Muhammad Ali for a lot of kids your age is why you're so special. No, to know about what Muhammad Ali stood for off the field and civil rights and the whole Vietnam in the late 1960s, the turbulence, to steal the line from Howard Cosell in his book, The Turbulent 1960s.
That's not a bad Cosell.
Muhammad Ali, and you don't see athletes willing to take that platform they're given and do what it is that he did. So, no, I would never. There's only one Muhammad Ali. I'm just saying that there are very few athletes that are willing to be as genuine and as it goes beyond just being nice. I mean, he does things for the community that a lot of us are not aware of, and I'm talking about Steph.
Well, that's true, and I also think in an Ali fashion, like Curry's. Look, he was the star of the Olympics on a team with arguably the greatest player of all time in LeBron James. And I think if you were to look, I mean, Curry was I think he made second team All-NBA this year. It wasn't like he's coming off an MVP campaign and he's at the peak of his powers and he still found a way to steal the show in Paris and make it about him in a way that wasn't arrogant, or at least, he didn't make it about him in a way that was selfish. He just did what he's done seemingly at every point in his career, and that's rise to the occasion. And in that way, he is Ali-like.
By the way, when we come back, if we can just stay on the Niners for a second. So I did a hit on our old friend Chucky.
Oh, yeah.
Chucky Walters.
Yeah.
So he's now heading up Locked On Warriors.
Yes, he is.
And so I know you did a hit on there, and so he called me up and said, "Hey, do you have some time?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So he texted me the subject matter, and it was Steve Kerr in a hot seat.
Oh,
and Steve Kerr hate. Like, really? Am I missing something here? I like to discuss because apparently there's a lot of people out there not happy with the man.
Dude. We can get to that on the other side. And also, yeah, again, I'll put a bow on this Aiyuk. I'll put a bow on Brandon on the other side.
Oh, yeah, we'll talk Brandon Aiyuk.
There's also, I'm sorry, what? Curry was third team All-NBA last year. Oh, boy, he's falling off a cliff. Still the best guy in Paris. All right, coming up on the other side, Dan's going to talk to us about why Steve Kerr's on the hot seat
I don't have him on the hot seat.
Well, why some people have him on the hot seat. And we will also get you set, again, for tomorrow. The 49ers do have a preseason game, 5 o'clock kick against the Saints. A couple of big storylines to get to. A couple of players that have also stood out. I'm curious to get Carter's thoughts, who's been at training camp on the other side of that as well, as we wrap up our second to final segment. Final segment coming up on the other side. Evan Giddings and Dan Devone on 95.7 The Game. We're back after this.
Hey, it's Willard and Dibbs. Enjoy these amazing deals at Safeway for their members. And as always, earn 4 times reward points on hundreds.
All right.
Yeah.
We're celebrating.
Going to be soaking some suds, if you know what I mean.
We should be pre-functing here in a little bit.
Well, we could be, but you're flying out right after the show. You're going to take me to Terminal 1 at SFO?
I'll tell you what, man. That's a good place to be.
Place like Caesar's Palace.
It really is. By the way, the new Harvey Milk Terminal, Terminal 1, used to be Terminal 2. That was sort of the go-to at SFO. Now Terminal 1 has trumped all of that. It's crazy, man. They have everything, and it's plush, and you sit down and you can recline. It's like being in like being in the lobby of a five-star Las Vegas hotel.
So you've been in the lobby of a 5-star hotel.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you've walked through Bellagio.
In Paris and Cannes, and Frankfurt.
It's got all the amenities, man. I love that stuff.
I think I've finally gotten to the bottom of it. What set you over the edge for Aaron Rodgers was the fact that now he can say he's also been to Egypt. And
I've never been to Egypt.
Well, I mean, but if you said I climbed the pyramids of Giza, I'd probably believe you.
What has he done in Egypt? Is that where he was dropping acid?
I think it's ayahuasca.
I actually have been in the pyramids in Egypt, and the lights went out when I was there. And I've never been so grateful for smokers because they all had their lighters and were able to guide us out. It was quite something.
So tell me about this. When it comes to the pyramids in Egypt, I heard it's gotten really commercialized.
Where's the outlet?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
That's just to my point. I hear it's gotten really commercialized. Like there's souvenirs and there's merchandise that they're selling there. It just doesn't sound right if you're going to the pyramids.
Well, if you can make money off of anything, you do it.
Like if you ever go to St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City on Fifth Avenue, St. Patrick's Cathedral, it's iconic, right? It's where the Kennedys got married. Now you walk into that thing, and before you even get to a pew, they're selling souvenirs. They're selling T-shirts. They're selling St. Patrick's hats inside the cathedral. I mean, you talk about blasphemy. My goodness.
Well, I mean, if you go to the Vatican, it's like you're sitting there. You can buy 18 posters for €1 million, and they're all different sizes. You can pick up a coffee mug that said, "I am Catholic." I mean, I don't know. I feel like there's a million different ways you could get money. In fact, I feel like a lot of the ancient religious sites now have entry fees. Like you don't just walk in and splash holy water on yourself and say 3 Hail Marys. You got to pay, $1. You got to give a foot and a limb up front.
You know, it used to be the biggest sacrilege back in the day in New York City. There was a place called Limelight, and it was a church.
Sounds like your kind of spot.
It was an abandoned church, but it was also the best club in New York. And it just was a little sort of, for those of us that grew up, I went to, I have Catholicism littered all over my upbringing. But I mean, I would hear stories about this place with people making out in pews, and it's just like, it was a church, but it was a club in New York City. And I just think that I think people would have to struggle with their sort of religious beliefs before just getting sideways in a church. Would you go to, if San Francisco had a church that was a converted church that was going off as the nightclub, would you have any qualms just going there, cutting it up, getting crazy and doing your thing?
Dude, if I could drink, I'd be in church every Sunday.
Let's get out on that. Hey, Carter, can you cover the last 20 minutes? That's a mic drop.
Who works on the Sabbath? I mean, seriously. I'm sitting in a pew with a Pacifico and a lime. I'm talking to God for 3 hours.
Man, I'm getting out of here because there's a lightning bolt that's crashing through this place any second.
Yeah, we're all going to hell anyways. No, but it does remind me, my favorite place in Stockholm in a little neighborhood called Södermalm was this restaurant called Haktet, and it is a converted prison. And it's been around for, I don't know, a few hundred years, but they turned into a restaurant and a bar. And then at night, it kind of becomes like a club. They had a DJ there. And so there's a back dimly lit room. You can go down into what I can only assume was a dungeon. And there's probably people tortured down there. But it turns into actually a nice, friendly place to, meet some people if you need to. And it was just a fantastic, it sounds a lot like Limelight.
Yeah.
Except it
the
wasn't
best
a
place
church.
that I went to in New York City, that there used to be, it looked like a food vendor, right? It used to be down in Soho. And it was a late night taqueria that was only, I believe was only open like Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And you would go there. And it was a front where there was like this long counter where you would get really good tacos and burritos. It'd be like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. There, it's New York, so it's open late, especially during the summer. But if you knew somebody, which I did,
of course
they would take you around the counter. through the kitchen. You got all these guys, screaming in Spanish.
I'm imagining you in a Johnny Cash suit.
And then you go drop down these stairs, and then you go down another level of stairs, and I kid you not, you go into the most plush lounge club, and you're like, what the hell is this doing here? Because the front is this taqueria that is this typical greasy spoon, but you would literally have to meander through the kitchen, drop down the stairs, go through a door, and down in the bowels is like this, not only this club, but this club, because I went with this former NBA player, this guy, and there were all these sort of women that would hang out with former basketball players. It was just like the quality of people in the basement of this taqueria was...
That's where like Jalen Brunson goes.
Hey, don't listen. Do we really want to go there? Because we could talk about the New York Knickerbockers who are going to dethrone the Boston Celtics for dominance out in the Eastern Conference, man. Because do not forget that we're getting Randall back into the mix to go along with Brunson.
Where are you
from? Did I go French on
Where
you?
are we?
Did I just break out a wee-wee?
Well, you just got back from there.
I am telling you now with Mikal Bridges into the mix, come on, man. You don't think they can challenge the Boston Celtics?
Well, they can. I think they're right now the second best constructed team in the East. It's them and Philly, along with the Celtics.
In that order?
I would say Celtics, Knicks, and then I still got to see with the Sixers, but between them and the Cavaliers, I think those are the top 4 teams to me in the East. Maybe Orlando, if their young guys can take some strides.
Wow,
but that's a pretty significant jump. That, to me, rounds up the top 4. It is funny to me, though, Dan, because like you're a city guy. You're from the Sunset, out in the fog. Today's weather is your weather. And every single time the city of New York is brought up, it's like you're Gotham's Dark Knight.
Oh.
You just get the cape out and start telling me how great the other side of the world is.
The problem I have, and Carter's from the city, right? Yeah. So
like 17th generation.
I love San Francisco. I mean, I always will, right? This is it for me. I love this place. But one thing growing up in the Richmond district, in the Sunset district, because if you live there's the microclimates of San Francisco are more so than any other place in the world.
That I agree with.
So while you're basking in the sun out in the Mission, I'm freezing my ass off out in the Richmond district. Although we're all within, the parameters that is San Francisco. So when you're in that fog and you're sort of just like, it reminds me of a perpetual sort of dark cloud that would hang over Seattle for those 8 to 9 months of the year. And there's just sort of a sap of energy, and you just sort of go from place to place. In New York, you walk out your front door and you'll walk 2 city blocks and you'll see more. Now, granted, some of what it is that you see, it may not be of high quality, but you will see more on those. No, you can do that in San Francisco these days.
That's true.
Walgreens online too. But if you go 2 blocks in New York City, you're going to see more than you would in 6 months in San Francisco.
But that's also, New York City is it's a different beast. And that I appreciate the speed of San Francisco, I think, a little bit more. Look, I grew up in the East Bay where things are also much sleepier and slower. And the weather also is different.
Where the quail has the right of way. What's the name of that city you grew up in?
Excuse me? The quail.
I'm just trying to...
I know. No, I'm from El Cerrito.
El Cerrito. All right.
It's Spanish for the hill.
Thank you.
In case you needed that.
All right.
But look, to get back, I'm trying to figure out how to transition here.
But you got a city vibe. You don't strike me as it. I would have a hard time sort of getting along with or butting up to someone from, that's Bridge and Tunnel.
Well,
you got a city soul.
Well, I loved living in Coal Valley.
Can we adopt him as an honorary city guy, Carter, you think?
Yeah, he's in.
I think so.
I appreciate you guys.
No doubt.
Although, I still don't know if you're going to be able to get me out to the marina.
You actually might be more city than us.
I don't touch landfill that often. And we're on the bridge right now, or on the edge, I should say. I think Montgomery's the water line, technically. We're on the edge. I'm getting close.
Well, by the way, just to let the fans know at home, if they want to join us, At 12:30 p.m. a week from today, we will be at Monahan's. That being Carter, our producer.
Just putting a PSA.
Evan. Is it sponsored by the station, by the way?
Devone's picking up the tab, everyone.
No, I'm more than happy to. If I invite you, like I've never been a guy to split a tab. Like that, don't do that. Don't do that. Let's pull a runner if we're going to do that.
I've learned that the hard way.
I will take care of it. I will take care of it. So I've invited you gentlemen to Monahan's.
I'm a cheap date. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Dude, come on, man. I've heard about you. You're going to crush me. I have to take another mortgage out on the house after buying you drinks.
I mean, okay, so you exercise, your arms and your quads and your calves.
No, I don't. What are you talking about?
Dude, you came in here in a sweat.
Oh,
it's like you ran from the Richmond district this morning. No, but you also got to exercise your liver every once in a while.
Oh, okay. That's what you're telling yourself. Okay.
That's T-minus 4 hours.
Big weekend for Evan.
Big weekend coming up.
Right.
I've been stretching all week, honestly, because look, Dan, I'm getting old, man. I'm getting old.
You're hitting let me tell you, it's just like an athlete. When you hit that 30 plateau,
I'm Curry. Like I'm starting to see the end.
No, man, it's just beginning for you. Look at
Pajemski?
No, look at our man who is on ESPN.
McAfee?
What's the guy he does?
He's losing some definition, by the way. He's got to put those cutoffs
What's up? Yeah, he's got to stop. Is the tank top just part of the shtick?
It's got to be. I mean, he's got but he's too corporate to play the redneck part to me anymore. Like, I used to watch the show and it was a little more internet-based, and he's still free off the tongue, but I think...
How's he getting away with the S-bombs on ESPN?
Yeah, same reason that the Giants are getting away with a 500 record, money. I don't know.
And does AJ Hawk just sit there with a stone face and that jawline?
Dude, I swear to God, I've never heard him say a word.
No, I don't think he does.
Unless Aaron Rodgers is on the show.
That's why he's there, I think. I think he just makes anyone else look good in that or makes everybody look good in that two-shot because of just that, he's got that jawline. And he just looks good sitting there not saying anything.
Yeah, I always wonder, okay, so earlier this week, ESPN had some layoffs, right? RG3, Sam Ponder were the big names. RG3, 2 years left in his contract, by the way. But they're going through layoffs. I do wonder if it's because of all the kind of top-level talent that they've had to pay. Similar to some decisions that the Niners are having to make, like which big wigs are we going to keep? I do wonder where that takes the future of sports media and investing so much money. Like, for example, I think Stephen A. Smith, if he wanted to ask for, north of $10 million a year?
He wants 25.
He wants $25 million?
That's the asking price.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Are you his agent?
No, 25 mil.
Well, you need to get in there.
25 mil. That's the number that's been bannered about.
Dude.
Because he leveraged this off of his podcast, which is like, I don't need you guys. I can go do my podcast full time, or I can obviously go elsewhere. No, 25 mil is the asking price, yeah.
He's going to be making Brandon Aiyuk money?
And the reason why, I don't know if it was not Ponder so much, but the reason why RG3 was expendable is because he's going to slide Kelsey into his spot.
That's a good point. I mean, it's basically like
What do you think of Ponder? I didn't really watch NFL Countdown with her. She good?
I mean, probably at that level, replaceable. I've also seen them start to rotate in a lot of SportsCenter anchors into more of the talk shows, like the Gary Streiskys and, God, I forget who his SportsCenter anchor partner is, but they've started to use them on First Take, and it could just be, fill in gaps while they figure out what they're going to do next with those talk shows. But it's almost like, I guess it's the way of the world. You got to wear multiple caps. And so if you're just a SportsCenter anchor or you're just an ESPN, Monday Night Countdown host or analyst, well, I'm sorry, we got somebody that can do a podcast. They can hop on McAfee. They can go to the studio show. They can also do games. And that's where I think Jason Kelsey is probably separating himself, because he's also got the number 1 or number 2 sports podcast in the world.
Yeah.
With him and his brother, who, by the way, is a part of a football team. I think the only football team right now that I would rank a bit higher than the Niners. I mean, the Chiefs are just, I don't know how they do it, man. They're turning into the Patriots, and I hate it.
Well, it's Mahomes.
Well, but it's also Kelsey. The guy's 36 years old.
Yeah. But Kelsey wasn't very good. He had a good Super Bowl, but throughout the regular season, there's been a serious decline.
It's just been more like a triumvirate. Him, Chris Jones, Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. It is interesting to me, though, in comparison to the Niners, who, and I think intelligently so, but have opted to
by the way, before, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm going to lose my train of thought.
I do it all the time.
Betting man, right now, if we're to put scratch on the table.
Oh, geez.
Better chance that we see the first three-peat in the history of the NFL without the Kansas City Chiefs winning a Super Bowl this year. Never happened, 3 in a row. Or the San Francisco 49ers getting back to the Super Bowl.
I would actually take the three-peat. I would.
Really?
I think I would bet on that.
Oh, no, the 49ers winning a Super Bowl because there's never been a team. Is that right? I want to say
I also just think it's very difficult for, well, I guess it's never happened in the history of the NFL, so I'm talking out of my keister right now. But this Chiefs team, I have more confidence in winning the Super Bowl than I do of the 49ers getting back to the Super Bowl. I think that losing in that fashion is just really, really hard to overcome. And I think the example we saw last year was the Philadelphia Eagles. They were also 3 points away or 1 score away from winning the Super Bowl and knocking off Mahomes. And the year after, they collapsed. And a big part of it was what we're talking about with Aiyuk and Trent Williams, distractions. And a lot of it had to do with the relationship between the head coach and quarterback, which fortunately is steadfast in San Francisco. But I find it hard to believe that there's not some residue of getting that close to the mountaintop and failing.
There's certainly an emotional side to all of this that has to be taken into account. But I like to think that maybe the Niners are just maybe a cut above because of that burning desire of Kyle Shanahan. I really think that Shanahan's opportunity of winning that Super Bowl, Emmanuel Sanders has got to step on a defender, and Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo just put it on him, and everybody go home happy.
Real quick, looking back on it, I don't know how many people have had this thought or have said it out loud, but Kyle Shanahan using Jimmy Garoppolo to get to a Super Bowl is maybe one of the most underrated feats that will ever be accomplished in the NFL.
Well, if you were to look side by side,
the guy's going to be out of the league.
Now he is. Well, but then this lends towards Brock Purdy being a system quarterback, because if you were to put their numbers up side by side, their first 3 years in the NFL, Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo are very similar, aside from the interceptions. The touchdown to interception ratio, I think, is a little bit more evident that Brock Purdy was better, but very, very similar, which again gets back to Austin's call some 2 hours ago that people want to make that argument that he's a system quarterback not worthy of $60 million anywhere else other than San Francisco.
That's a fair criticism, but I also think this team is a lot better. And now that might contribute in making Purdy look better or, play better. He's got better weapons. But you look at that 2019 team, and that defense was,
that was
amazing. But their best offensive weapon, your point, was by the end of the season, Emmanuel Sanders. Debo Samuel was a rookie. George Kittle was damn good that season.
Wide receivers.
And he took that offense to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And they absolutely steamrolled the two teams they played in the playoffs to get there.
Yeah.
That's the other part, too, that I think is a reason why I have my doubts about the Niners getting back to the Super Bowl. The only time that they've done it is when they've been the 1 seed. And I find it hard to believe that they're going to be the 1 seed again this year. I do think that they'll take a step back a game or two. And if you have to win 12 or 13 games to be the 1 seed, to get that elusive bye.
But again, who is it? I know that there's a few teams, but at least as of right now, and you never know, right? Maybe Detroit is legit, but everybody has warts on them. Detroit, Green Bay, good, but not proven. Philadelphia, maybe. So as we look at it, the landscape of the NFC right now, there isn't somebody where you would just point at and say, well, look out for Philly this year, or clearly it's, fill in the blank. So in that regard, the Giants have the Niners have as good a shot as anybody at being that number 1 seed.
Well, and again, they're playing their second game of the preseason tomorrow, 5 o'clock, Saints, Niners. We'll have overtime here on 95.7 The Game. But I think that, look, if I was to ask you this betting question, I don't know, I guess you're not a gambling man, but if you were to bet on the Niners as the 1 seed versus the field, who would you take?
Yeah, I might have to take the field.
And last year, I would take the Niners.
Yeah.
And I think we did this exercise at some point on the radio last year. And last year, I felt like it was the Niners. The Niners were not just the clear-cut team in the NFL, but they had everything, motivationally speaking, moving in their favor. The only wrinkle in that was the Bosa potential holdout. But the rest of that team was full go. And Brock Purdy was coming off an injury, but he looked like he was going to be healthy. And then after week 1, when they decimated the Pittsburgh Steelers, it was like, all right, this team is ready to ride. And they got everything emotionally in their favor. I just think it's very, very difficult when you get so close to achieving your goal and then have it swept out from under you to just get right back there like nothing. Honestly, if they get back to the Super Bowl this year, that to me would be a feat unto itself.
Who is your sleeper this year? If you were to pick a team that comes out of nowhere, that nobody's mentioning out of the NFC this year?
That nobody's mentioning. Well, I think a lot of people have mentioned the Chicago Bears. They're a pretty sexy pick.
Hey, how about Drake May? It looked pretty good, no?
What about him?
Come on. I think Brandon Aiyuk needs to rethink that deal, that trade. Yeah, you sure they want to give you the $32 million? Drake May?
They wanted to give him that money. By the way, the team that I do think that I think they're a top-notch squad, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about them, and I've mentioned them multiple times. I think it's the Philadelphia Eagles. Like the Eagles
they're considered perennially in that sort of. I'm talking about a dark horse.
Well, no, but people have been talking, I think, more about either the distractions in Dallas, the dominance of Detroit, the up-and-coming Packers team, the dark horse that is the Rams. I don't hear people, at least maybe it's on this station, I got my blinders on, talking about how good the Eagles are. They're one of the few teams that can legitimately say they got better this offseason. And they were a collapse away from maybe making a postseason run last year. I think that's enough.
You ready for my dark horse?
Who's your dark horse?
Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings. Oh. Good night, everybody.
On that note, I mean, that is Sam Darnold.
Reclamation Project.
That's a name that I did not think I'd have to hear for a long time.
Well, you will, because J.J. McCarthy's out for the season.
Yeah, has any team had more injury trouble in training camp than they have?
No. Oh, actually, I take that back. All right, if you want a true dark horse, the Atlanta Falcons. Yeah, the Atlanta Falcons.
You're in on Kirk Cousins?
I'm in on that defense, honestly. And I'm in on the playmakers that they have on offense. And I'm in on an offensive coordinator that will finally give the ball to Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and everybody else they got on that side of the ball.
Michael Penix is starting by week 6.
Oh, boy. That we can bet on. And we'll pay it off next week right here on 95.7 The Game. 12:30, get to Monahans. Talk about it next week. Big thank you to Carter Chickering. Big thank you to my man Dan Devone. Big thank you to everyone else who has listened out there today, whether it's on Xfinity Mobile Text Line, our YouTube and Twitch chat powered by First NorCal Credit Union. My name is Evan Giddings saying so long. We'll talk to you next Saturday right here on 95.7 The Game.
So, how's your research going?
Surprising. After I figured out the top-rated TVs in our price range, I went shopping for deals.
And who's the best?
It wasn't the internet, and it wasn't the warehouse.